So in your OpenStack installation, do you maintain the machines, or does machines get maintained from somebody else? Is it your team that maintains the boxes in your OpenStack? Who maintains it? Vendor or you?
Different team.
Okay.
Well, depend on how we spell out maintain.
Right. Maintain as in create accounts, user provision accounts, provision projects. So this concept of OpenStack, let me pull it up. If you look at this documentation and look at oh, sorry. These ideas regarding, and some examples of how do you begin by maybe a 3-node architecture here. With this one node, this is another node, and this is another node, or maybe a 2-node architecture. My question was essentially in the idea that I want to actually set up this kind of set of architecture in here, if we have boxes, and meaning get bare metal, get hardware, and build up OpenStack here. Is this interesting? Do you want to do that, or no?
I don't know, because we already have it inside.
Yeah. But have you set up OpenStack from scratch? Like, make OpenStack. Is that interesting?
To me, no.
No? So what is interesting in OpenStack?
Oh, it's just that, it's another cloud that we can have for using.
Yes, yes.
And there's another team managing.
Huh.
Yeah. The thing exciting about it is that in Boeing, normally you want to deploy a small application with database, for example. Take you 6 to 9 months.
Sorry. Oh yeah. No markers here apparently. I can give you this marker. How about this? What is it called? Notability. There. Here's a marker. Marker for you. Grab a seat and off you go. Marker. There we go. And a pen. New page. Full screen. And bit width. That's your marker. If you can write.
Okay. Yeah, now that's usually to just get a server itself, right? Take a long time.
Yeah, yes.
Right? That's why
spend a couple $100 and buy hardware. Get the pen tool up on top here. The pen tool. It's kind of a hand-eye coordination issue.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, this one. Yes, good. That will work.
Okay. So
you have to get a little bit like write hello or something,
right,
just to get started. Yeah.
Oh.
Get used to it, and then you can start.
How do I erase it?
You can just put a 2-finger swipe and ignore erasing. Just go up like this and ignore the page.
Oh, okay. So my idea was having, sort of a web page where you have all the different services available for the end user to give them an environment like, say, a LAMP stack. So customer goes in here, brief description about, he clicks on that, okay, this is what he gets. Be able to click on it, order a service, and they get an email in their credential with the login credential and everything. Okay, so that was one, and basically just before that, maybe a help page for the customer, like what kind of applications they're trying to order. Like LAMP is Linux based, then similarly maybe a .NET or a Windows based application, 2 or 3, and different sizes like extra small, large, So just one page where they can order the complete, like a 3-tier architecture stack. That was one. Second, so that's like use case number one. Use case two, what I was thinking was for the users and ability, something to do with like markup, markdown, not up. Using that, come up with a website to be able to publish the documents. I mean, create a sort of a usable, easily I can order an application. It gives me the entire framework and I can just write a document, put it somewhere and it gets published. So that ability. So I don't know how do I put it in the word,
keep
but
it internal to company, outside the company?
Internal to company. And also have, sort of a role-based access control. So if I have a doc one,
Who can access what?
yeah, I have 4 or 5 user groups defined and I can just click that, these 3 should have read access to this. So some sort of
Access control.
yeah, access control, a role-based access control. And that way I can control like, internal to my team or goes out to 5 different groups who can have visibility. How do I scroll? So those
Two
were the
fingers.
two.
Fingers up.
Okay. Those were the 2 things that I had. Third was sort of a recommendation on, on tools, which includes like Chef, any other like, I don't know.
Puppet. Is that tool, that type tool? Or?
Not so. We did Chef. So what can I do using Chef?
I see.
Okay. So second was like some examples. So WordPress is like a software as a service,
SaaS.
you will call it, right? SaaS. So like WordPress or any other open system software that we can use, and the use cases, why do I need them and how they can help me. Third one was operational capabilities. So I wanted to sort of prepare one architecture diagram using like Chef server, how it is set up and everything, what we did practically, and then show the user some example on scalability.
Project? Oh, that's the project?
Yeah, I was just putting together my thoughts on what I was thinking. So scalability is one, like today I have 10 users, I just need one machine and be able to, how easy it is to just, and I don't know if it can be programmatically done or somebody needs to manually go in and create.
Scalability code you have to write.
Yeah, so if we can, if we can write it, nothing like it, but otherwise, just what are the triggers that can be put in place to say that, okay, we need something else. So scalability was one, and second was just the ability to push something like, say, a patch, like a new DB patch or something has come up. So I have 10 different machines out there. I just check it on my workstation, copy it to my Git server. Yeah, I mean, push it to the Git server, and from there, the Chef client is running and it takes that patch and applies it to all within minutes. So something like, just show the capability of how I can use that Chef infrastructure for these operational use cases. And in the past, we had discussed about something about, like monitoring and, monitoring and alerting. So, say I have a machine that I had provisioned and somebody has gone out there and changed some parameters manually. Can that be automatically detected yeah, some kind of alerts, and then using that chef client to restore it back to the
good health.
so, yeah, to the good health situation. So something of that sort. If I can just pick one use case and
So there are some ready-made tools already available in the industry that enable this scenario, like monitoring and alerting. If you can write the full words, that will help me remember.
okay,
So monitoring, there are open source tools such as Nagios, and in commercial tools that are available called New Relic, and they'll do monitoring and alerting just fine for you. New Relic is paid for service.
Yeah.
Nagios is open source, and we can absolutely use that. In fact, there's a Nagios cookbook that you can use to deploy a Nagios box, and that box itself, then they'll manage your entire collection of machines and then give you monitoring and reporting and alerting.
Right.
And another, in terms of alert delivery, there's a interesting software available called software as a service called PagerDuty.
yeah, you mentioned that.
And that is also interesting to take a look at. But again, these are commercial products. PagerDuty and New Relic, both of them are commercial, but very popular in the technology industry as such.
Yep.
Many companies use it. So that's good perspective that you have.
Yeah, so these three scenarios for the operational, two fingers down. Then yeah, some recommendations on the tool like Chef, how easy it is to use, some of the open like WordPress and all, which can be used for publishing documents and all those kind of thing. And yeah, couple of things. One, quick, not very fancy, just an internal site which describes various kind of, how can I provision to a developer a complete stack so that they can run their applications and all that. And a little bit, about publishing documents using, say, Markdown and some access control mechanisms.
Yes.
And
In fact, there is, you come to think about this Markdown-based writing tool. There's a open source Rails-based application that you run on a server, and what it will do is anything you have in a Git repository will automatically get published, like Markdown does. So that's very beautiful. So all you need to go do is change your MD files, Markdown files, in that Git repo and push, and it automatically updates the website. I will find out its name. I have seen it. I'm forgetting the name, but it's a good use case for this number 2 here, which is take your Markdown docs and put them in a MD in a Git repo, and automatically becomes a website with your write-ups.
okay.
All you need to do is just push, and there you have it. In fact, it's a gem, if I remember it right. It's a ready-made, ready-to-use gem Markdown site.
So then it's what you just read is going to benefit the organization. Software.
So one is publishing documents is always multiple versions of Snack can be a good use case. I was thinking that operational capability using Chef. Another one, and then
I'll pull it up. I'll pull up. See, so the idea that you had was, let me go over what you just described so everybody gets on the same page. Number one was this, put a menu together, let them select the application, let them select the size, the flavor of the boxes, and then deploy those sizes of boxes with the appropriate stack ready for deployment. Like an example was extra small lamb stack or large lamb stack becomes one of the menu choices. That was one of the things that you had in mind. So that becomes a good candidate. And we have done quite a bit of work in this already with this, where was that? This write-up we had, the Chef repo we created here. This one that you have used already. It already does quite a bit of that. From the next step perspective to close out on that project is to actually take a site live, like some of you have, like I know Srinivas did. Sorry. Yeah, WordPress site. You took it live, right? It worked. Good. So take that same chef repo that you have and invoke it whenever a user says, I want this and I want, say lamb stack. And so as soon as these selections are made, some from the portal of the user can then invoke the same set of sequence, invoke a box of the appropriate size selected, and run your cookbook collection that you have, and set up in appropriate environments and take on the roles that we suggest, and off it goes to create a site for you, and then notify the user, hey, your site is ready at this location. Here are your login credentials. Go ahead. Go use the MySQL database or go use your WordPress instance ready for you to use. So that becomes a internal product for the user that you can make. In case of markdown-based and role-based access control, I will find out what that name of that thing is. It's so easy to run. It is almost trivial. All you need to do is say gem install something. I'm forgetting that something name, and then you run it. It's a prepared Ruby-based package. It runs on a server, and all you need to do is git pushes. So whatever contains in that local folder will get rendered, automatically gets rendered as a website containing documentation of pages. And access control is implemented through GitLab. So who can access a particular repository will depend. GitLab will drive that access control itself for you. So you can tie that up through Boeing credentials, like your username or his user access, who can access which Git repository from a read permission perspective, write permission perspective. Based on that credential, it will automatically do a RBAC for you. And I'm forgetting the name of the tool, but I'll come back with that.
Oh, so for the role-based access control, I was, if I go to that website or internal portal, whatever it is, what are the documents that I can see? So I can create 4 different groups, like a DBA group, or general public group. So any document I publish, I can just say, some sort of interface that these people can have access.
Right. And if you have, so the access is essentially tied to a Git repo access. If you can access Git, you can access the site.
Okay.
It is tied through that. In that particular tool that I'm remembering, which I will remember, is tied through Git. So if you can access the Git repository and read it, then you can see the corresponding site. If you cannot access Git, you cannot see the site. As simple as that. So tied through that. That was that one example. You can come up with other ideas or other examples. Next one was recommendation on tools. Like, this is more of a recommendation, meaning a write-up of. I can help you with that, or maybe you can come up with your own also.
Chef can do that. I mean, I was thinking on
yes,
like sort of a training plan. Like somebody needs to have basic knowledge of Ruby on Rails, this, right. And it takes this much time to be able to learn.
Right. Makes sense. Then we have this aspect of overall architectural diagram, understanding how it scales, how it helps patching, and then monitoring, alerting. How can you enable that? So we'll go over some of those. And that was, thank you for your ideas. That was beautifully written. Thank you. Now, the next question I have is for OpenStack. What do you expect? Because my plan is to actually go over some of these architectural beginning points where you actually build from scratch a private lab with OpenStack deployed, so you can then roll out projects and users, and probably that's what you're already doing internally, but I don't know.
A few minutes later, so did OpenStack arise?
No, I brought it up to begin with because this is something that I was thinking of, but
So we already have an OpenStack deployment.
Yes, right. Do you want to do the same here or not necessary, not needed? What do you think? Like I was thinking of deploying this thing, this architecture, two box setup, bring 2 boxes, set it up here, and have all of us use the box and see how it actually plays out. Is that interesting or is that trivial?
So
is that already done?
This would be an exercise of learning how to stand up in OpenStack
Yes.
as well as get a feel for what it's like to use it.
Yes. Is that useful or are you already doing it? Then I may not.
I would leave others to answer that.
I think I prefer having done it here because I'm not involved in that going project where you're doing the OpenStack thing. So we
see.
have time, we would like to.
I see.
cover.
So there are a couple ways, depending on if you are interested in dealing with hardware, like some of us are. It depends on your interest. If you think it is relevant to have a box in the cloud and then deploy OpenStack on that box, then we run into this problem of VM inside a VM,
Right.
which becomes difficult to deal with, right? So it is good to have a physical box, then you can comfortably deploy virtualization and put
So just personally, I would find it interesting because I'm
Yeah.
in my spare time I'm trying to put together a little OpenStack environment.
Hey, so if you have box, bring it over. I will do it here. Bring your box here. We'll do it here because I would love to help you out. No doubt, it becomes an interesting exercise. If it is of relevance, it gives you like a raw perspective on what does it take to build a private cloud from scratch. This documentation you have here, this is the Icehouse documentation. The next one is Juno. So it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. J is the current one being developed. This is Icehouse. We'll take one step back, not go bleeding edge. One step back. Icehouse is stable, and deploy Icehouse on a box right here. If that is something that is of interest. If that is not interesting, we do something else. There are 100 other ideas that we can always run. So it is that's the reason why I started bringing up OpenStack, because this is of interest, and a lot of hiring, lot of activity. Except like Amazon, except Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, most of the cloud world is OpenStack. If you think of it from a deployment perspective, Amazon is Zen-based hypervisor and their own cloud. They're the leaders. They started it 7 years ago or so. Microsoft is Hyper-V-based cloud, their own internal hypervisor-based cloud, and it's primarily Windows, but some of it is quite a bit of it is now Linux. And Google's, I don't know what they have. They don't seem to tell, but they have their own cloud, which is not OpenStack. Now, the rest of the world chose to deploy OpenStack because everybody basically is ganging up and forming a consortium, which is called the OpenStack. So there is Rackspace, there is NASA, there is HP, Cisco, IBM, our local companies here, smaller companies in this area, as well as some companies in California, are all putting together their efforts in creating this product. And it's pretty darn good product. It is immensely useful in the context of private cloud, in the context of what you have, which is when you do not want to share your assets outside. And when like the companies that are designed to operate like your company is, you want to keep things private, this is a great solution. And HP and IBM and Cisco understand this very well, and EMC also, by the way. And they have put efforts in developing this further, and they're deploying it in private little boxes called, if you have heard of this company called, what's the company called? Pivotal. GoPivotal.com. A part of EMC, they're focusing their efforts on, and so is HP Cloud, is Cisco Cloud, all of them. IBM Cloud, from an infrastructure perspective, is all OpenStack. The next layer on top, which is to create a platform available as a service. There is another open source project which you may have heard from me. It's called Cloud Foundry.
You said Amazon is which VM? Which
Zen.
So I would modify Zen.
Yeah, Zen based. Yeah, Zen is the hypervisor underneath. And
that's open source as well?
yes.
What Amazon's done to it is help closely.
they don't want to release, but they occasionally release parts of it. And so this is the Zen project. And there are other hypervisors technologies available called KVM. This is big in Red Hat. And this is a good one that OpenStack loves to use. OpenStack is mostly agnostic to the underlying hypervisor. You can use any hypervisor you like. It is mostly of a flavor where it's more of a management layer where you can get the feel and look and feel of what we are familiar with this thing called console.aws.amazon.com. You've seen this before. I'm just this thing that you see. So you get all the services in one portal. OpenStack has come up with a management portal like that. That does not look like this at all, but conceptually similar. They also come up with APIs that connect through Nova to manage EC2-like framework, like infrastructure layers, other API-based access methods. It works through those APIs that they have published. It also now works with a EC2-like API from a company that got acquired recently called Eucalyptus. These guys got acquired by HP, and they are supporting industry standard AWS APIs, and you can have OpenStack managed through this API. The API is called Yuka Tools. And this Yuka Tools works with OpenStack just fine. And also OpenStack's own APIs. So apart from these API methods and browser-based access methods, OpenStack also supports Chef, meaning you can go something like this. Let me open up an example. I think I may have showed it to you before, but here it is one more time. Here is a knife configuration file that operates on OpenStack, and it looks something like this. At the end, if you happen to have an OpenStack deployment, you would go line 58 through 65 and define it with your keys and your access points, and then you can operate on that particular setup of a private cloud using similar command that you already know, like a knife, OpenStack, server list. And there is a gem plugin called knife OpenStack, and it works with OpenStack deployed. So if you are inside your private area, then this will work. If you're outside your private, if you're here and you want to operate on Boeing, you cannot do it. You cannot reach it, so you cannot go there. But if you have a VPN connection, you can still operate on it. So that's the framework through which you can operate like this through Chef or Puppet or their own APIs that they provide, or Yuka APIs, or a browser interface. So all sorts of methods of accessing and managing are available.
So what happens if we are inside a firewall?
If you are inside a firewall, let's look at that. So I will open it up again. Let's look at the address. This address is a 192 address. You're already inside the firewall, right? You can access this API endpoint, this authorization URL, only from within the domain, within the subnet. It cannot be accessed from outside the subnet.
Well, I was thinking about, like, for example, we use community cookbook and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So in that case, what you do is you bring your community cookbook locally from another box, another access point, and then use it. So you can still use it, except that you do not have a physical connection to the world outside. And that's okay. You can bring it locally and then use it. Like you can physically download cookbooks and drop it in this folder called cookbooks here. And that will work. You don't have to be dependent on the internet from outside. That becomes a scenario. So do we want to close out on that exercise and finish it off with the last step we were doing the last time before we proceed with the next idea? Or are you done with Chef? Are you get tired of Chef already or not yet? So I must have that. What is? You love it? Oh, wow. Love Chef. So these steps, I want to make sure that you are good with those, and that because it becomes a good exit point is what I was thinking of, is to maybe check these steps and create a database user and drop in WordPress binary, so WordPress source code, and open it up in your browser. Is that something you want to do, or you're tired of Chef? If you're tired, we can move on. If you want to do it, I'll help you clean it up and complete it. What do you think? You saw this email, right? Some of you did. I hope you
was
did.
just actually checking the versions are different that I have for the patching. 2.4.7.
Maybe an old number. That may be, so version numbers may be different.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, really. The reason it is different is because the email that I have, I copied and pasted from somewhere, did not actually run it live.
Okay.
It's a run from probably last year.
Oh,
So in my email, there are some version numbers, ignore them. Because those version numbers are from a copy and paste that I did from a run about a year ago.
You have the same instructions.
Yes. So the issue that we had that day with auth Z failure was primarily because when I ran this first time, like a year ago when I ran it, there was Ubuntu 12.04 and 14.04 was not available. It came out in April this year. So I never tried it before. And then I ran into that issue and then what's the issue? Then I figured that the issue is actually because the cookbook was old.
Authorization problem.
Yeah, my cookbook was old in my instructions. So I updated my instructions to bring it up to level 200, which now works.
Another thing is the Git repo you have, like we have used your Git repo.
I don't know. Usually you already have a folder. I gave you Git repository for comparison. My Git repository comes from my folder. So this folder I have, this folder, this folder that I've been, all of us have been working with, I just put that folder in Git and gave it to you. So you can compare what I have versus what you have.
I mean, I don't know how to, I don't need it because I have a folder, but if I want to use it.
If you want to use it, you have a Git clone.
Git
Clone and then copy the whole folder down. So the thing I want you to check, if you're running into a database issue, which I think not. I think you ran into this issue regarding user access. So you should check this particular file very clearly, which is our cat, data bags, users, and then your name.json. That file is the culprit if your user access doesn't work.
Yeah,
This is not a blocking issue for WordPress deployment, by the way. It's not a blocking issue. You can still deploy WordPress even if this fails. Because this is about you accessing as yourself as opposed to root or Ubuntu or somebody else. So that's this element of data bag that you need to make sure that this is clean, your ID is correct, your SSH key is appropriate, and the data bag entry is actually in Chef server. And then your role should be cat roles users base. That role should say these names. And this recipe is actually responsible for invoking it. Users : sysadmin recipe. When that is applied, it creates that user. So check in your roles locally whether you have this correctly set up.
Oh, in the base RB.
Base RB. And if you want to do a quick clone of what I provided in that email, you should have a GitHub. This where was that example? Chef repo. This one. Yeah, you should be able to take this Git repo and just clone it like this from HTTP and clone. In this, there is a clone link available. You can just take that link, bring it here, and git clone paste. It will bring it down, and you give your username, password, and you get the whole folder down in your box.
So where we get that URL in that?
Okay, I think I gave it to you in the classroom, but I'll give it to you again. So here is the URL coming. It should also be in the classroom.
Okay.
The idea behind this Git cloning is to help you compare item by item what is different between what you have and what I have.
Yeah, okay.
And so this will, you can go file by file comparison and what is different. So that will tell you what is missing. But the key culprits when it comes to access issue for SQL database is that this knife data bag show secrets my SQL. This should show you your secrets, and your other data bag should be data bag users, and your name should show you your user. So the second file is about the user data bag, and the first is an encrypted one, the upper segment, upper command. This blue item is encrypted data bag, so you cannot see it because it doesn't exist here. It exists there and encrypted. Whereas the other data bag here is local, and so you can cat it. The other data bag is not local. I don't think I have it in my folder, but you can bring it locally by, I think, saying -fj. Then it brings out a JSON, and you can paste it to a local file. Oh, not this cat. That one. This should be fj. This should bring out a JSON file syntax, and then you drop this into a JSON file locally if you want it. Not needed. Not needed. Keep your password simple and invoke it. The invocation command is also in that Git repo, where you will find it in do.md or ec2.md. These two files will show you. Do you have boxes running already, or you want to delete the box and clean up again and begin? You're running. You have it running. So you can run on top. You don't have to delete the box. You can just invoke chef again. Sudo chef client on the box to invoke it again. On the remote box that got created on that box, not your workstation.
But I haven't changed anything.
Yeah. So you need to change something to find out the issue, change something, and then send it to the server, and then sudo chef client will invoke it again. So if you find an issue with your configuration in that folder, in the directory you are maintaining on your workstation, you should be able to do a comparison and find out where the issue is. And I'll help you identify the issue if you isolate the issue for me.
Yeah, so I got your this link.
Yeah. So you can do git copy the address and run it in the workstation.
Yeah,
Git clone.
GitHub, right? GitHub.
You can paste that link right in the browser. It will show you, but not clone it.
Oh. So, do it one?
Yeah. Paste it in the URL.
To give?
You pull up the repo. Here you can get the clone URL. So the same thing.
Just copy the code.
Same thing.
Just do
And you git clone not in that folder.
then it will mess up.
Yeah, it mess up this. You go to another folder.
Create some.
No, I'm kidding here. Just go straight. It will automatically create a directory for you. So git clone and link.
Mhm.
Enter. Yes. And there it comes. Password, username, password on Git. GitHub. Sama home. Yes, Sama home is the password. Break it. Your login name is Sama home and your password is whatever it is. And that will create a folder called example chef repo. And there you have all the things that I have in my computer.
Oh, so I can go to each folder and then
I can just compare. I can buy if you're, you can do a diff if you like.
Yeah.
You had only one issue, Michael, right? The user access issue, or even that got sorted out? Not yet.
User access issue.
User access issue persisted.
Yes, I was not able to access it myself.
So I would suggest focusing on the user JSON and see a user diff in the data map. And also your role or base. Role for base for users or balances have been.
Yeah. So where could the possible culprit be? Like I'm still
Yeah.
so I just did a Nilesh JSON with some JSON. So
Your ID and
still expect this will differ.
anything else is not different, right?
Checking each of them. Yeah. The base.rb that goes from roles.
No difference.
Is that right? Should be
Should be identical. No
Okay.
difference. Check your role if it is on the server side.
my
In your server. You have your line.
That's the same one up there.
That's good. So you posted hello world and edited.
Yeah. I just did it here. Oh, so I could do that in it here.
WordPress edits need to be on the browser.
Oh,
Because WordPress edits and data pages go in a database, not in live files.
oh, not in the
Not in the files. So WordPress source code,
So we have-
we're not supposed to touch WordPress source code when you're using it. So no file editing. All the content that you type in sites
Goes
goes
into
in
the
the database.
in database or MySQL? MySQL all the time. I mean, for us MySQL, but usually MySQL.
It is MySQL only. There is no other choice in WordPress.
No, that's right.
Only MySQL. There are some customizations in MariaDB that some people have done. WordPress recommends
Standard is
MySQL.
MySQL.
That's the only choice I think WordPress has. So anything you type, like a hello world, or any blog post or any page creations, anything you do with WordPress is all in the database.
All in the database. Images or anything. Last
Like
time.
a giant
Yeah, I just put a picture, but it
picture.
is
This picture will go in your WP content folder. Here, WP content uploads date. That's what it
So
is.
where does it show up here? Like, I mean,
The picture will become available in your terminal. So go to the terminal. And on the drone, Yeah. In drone, go to /var/www/WP content, and then uploads, and then year, date, and then this Sandesh.
yeah, my
That's where the file sits. And you uploaded it to the browser interface.
Close.
So that the process that ran as Apache, and so the user ID is www-data,
The system.
not just Apache user.
Apache.
System will run as root,
Hmm.
but this is Apache running. WordPress is running as Apache, www-data user.
That's what we consider yesterday.
Yes. And so it stays as the file name with that permission. So this is accessible from outside. Public can see it.
Yeah, so the user thing is required for us to run certain things.
Which user thing?
We have a problem with that.
Not a requirement. It is a matter of convenience and a matter of practice.
Yeah, because we don't run a group usually.
It's not a requirement. It will still work, but it's a good practice to not run a
So we need to check, compare with each part.
Yep. And as well that nail it. And it is not a requirement. It's a good practice.
Right.
Good practice. Did you find it? Or not yet?
The base.rb file is the same
These are different. So they should be.
You can skip that issue, I think, unless we want to do it right now. It's not, you have the WordPress live already. How are you doing, sir?
Just kind of power back up.
You had your workstation, you go through some kind of a proxy? Soft proxy?
Yes.
So, meaning you're not using Putty, or does Putty require soft proxy? Or how do you go with that proxy?
Oh, because I'm not connected to the Google network.
So I am connected to the phone network.
That threw me off because I saw him and I saw him.
I work on a Linux box and I SSH out from the Linux box. So I don't use Putty.
Oh, so you're
So
from,
you SSH in the Windows command? Or how
I'm
do you,
sorry.
how do you run SSH command?
How do I get to my Linux box from my Windows box? We have a terminal.
Not Putty.
Correct. It's single text.
Exceed?
That threw me off the other day. He's doing something different than you.
Yeah.
Why do you have to have a soft proxy but he doesn't? When he's not connected to going
If I'm in the Google network, I think
you have proxy.
yeah, he showed me the instructions. Yeah.
Otherwise you can just go straight. You cannot.
Right, like when I was at Boeing network, I couldn't connect to the cloud instances. Any cloud.
It will not viable.
Firewall.
Or even for going outside is blocked out. Makes sense. When I started my first session in this building SSH was disabled outside.
In this building.
In this building. So I had to go to the university IT department, have them open up SSH so that people can come in the building.
Like Washington College.
In this college, this building. Could not go outside on SSH 420 o'clock. 22 was blocked. And I said, ouch.
Because all those guys.
Yeah. So on the very first day I come to class and because nobody ever SSH from this building.
Oh. They don't have that program from
So I had to explain to them why I didn't open up.
They're thinking, no, we can't do it.
The thing is not.
We don't let 422.
But I think it's okay. And they agree.
I can understand the university.
It should be. Yeah. The problem with inbound SSH is a big problem. Outbound, yeah, should be okay. Yeah, you can still do a reverse proxy and
So we worry a lot about exfiltration of sensitive information.
if you have an insider that is rogue, then you have a problem. A rogue guy sitting inside the firewall and have 422 going out, you can plant a box there and then public can access the whole infrastructure, theoretically. And that becomes a problem. So I can understand. But there's, rogue guys exist.
Maybe
It's a fact. They just exist.
You can't get rid of it, but you have to do your best.
Yes. True. Totally. In ENC, we had a person, maybe 17 years ago, a person running personal websites onto the corporate servers.
Wow.
And somebody got him and fired.
Wow. Using the computing power,
Everything. In those days, it was kind of expensive, but he used to run his private site from internal boxes in the company using company networks.
Maybe the company's IT group, he knows
Yeah,
he
he knew the whole thing, so he used to do that. And somebody caught him. Okay. This is a long time ago. So yes, as I said, rogue people exist. They just they're there. They're just like they're there.
Well, it's not so there's rogue people. The other there's a big concern about so-called advanced persistent threats. Nitin, for example, he's not a rogue person, but he does something. His machine gets infected somehow,
Yes.
and they start exfiltrating lots of information.
Very likely. And these days it is so easy to hack. With new vulnerabilities discovered every day. It's So it's hard to keep track of when you have like a large company.
I was trying to download Putty and I went to some site which was
Not
I mistyped the URL.
Ouch.
Looked like Putty, but it wasn't.
You have to be really, really careful.
Click download and okay.
Those download buttons are really big and shiny.
Yeah, it can be very
Very scary.
unknowingly you can
Yeah, you just
download
accident-
something.
and so easy to get infected these days. In fact, the easiest way to get a virus, you know how? Is you go to your bulk mail folder and click every link you can find.
Yeah.
Takes 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes to get a virus. And there are malformed images, there are all sorts of links and JavaScript, and just use a Windows computer with IE and 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And made it. So easy. So
So yeah,
let's give it a.
site has come out.
Oh, your site has come up. Beautiful, beautiful. How wonderful.
Yeah, so but I just read the commands. I don't know what I was doing.
I see.
Just typing them.
Maybe I'll just open them up and walk you through as to what am I doing. What are you doing when you're doing that? Let me open it up and walk you through because that is kind of relevant to know. Right? Okay, there it is. And here are the instructions. I wrote them in email. I'll bring them up here so you can get the perspective. You are up to this point, you know what we have done and we discussed it, right? Test for success, right? And these are 2.2.2, which are older versions. You have Ubuntu 14.04, Apache has bumped to 2.4. This is like April 17th, 2014. So long time, older instructions, older versions, PHP versions, MySQL versions. You saw that there are versions available and installed. Then you check your database login. You found that you are able to log in correctly, which is awesome. Sorry, too big. Okay, back to the database thingy. Yeah, you saw your database, you're able to log in. Now in that database SQL command, there is a SQL prompt. And on that SQL prompt, you need to create an empty database named WordPress. It doesn't have to be named WordPress. I just chose this for simplicity. And you create that by saying MySQL on that local host box, meaning the box you are sitting on, that box, -u, and P123. 123 is my password. Your password will be different. And then you enter this line, create database WordPress. It creates an empty database with no user associated yet. Then you have to accept permissions, set permissions for the database. So on that same MySQL prompt, you say create a user. Let's call that user username. Now this is again, to be very, very simplistic, to use a user called username is ridiculous. But the reason I use it, because then when you actually set up WordPress, these names are predefined. You can just click and go. So
I created my own.
you probably created your own, but if you just open up with these names and you click one button, it just goes ahead and does the whole thing. Because they have chosen these as the default values. For user, they have chosen username. For database name, they have chosen WordPress. And for password, they have chosen the word password. So I chose that name by deliberate choice to make it simple on you. You need to change it if you like. In real life, you would not use these names, but something else. So create a user called username on the local host, identified by the word password, meaning you use the password as your password for the user called username on the box called localhost. Then you grant usage on all the databases, which is only one right now, to this username at localhost identified by the password. So you're giving access to this user called username who is using a password called password, and then grant all privileges on that database to that user. So you have a user called username who has a password called password and can operate on the database called WordPress. That's what we did. and then you come out of that MySQL prompt by saying control D or Q, I quit or something like that. You just exit the prompt, you're back to the shell, and on the shell, in this line, we are grabbing WordPress source code. This link comes from WordPress.org. There's a download button here. That's where this link comes from. wget is basically HTTP download. It downloads a package called latest tar gz, and this command tar command will extract it and open up the folder. The folder will be called WordPress. That's what you see when you see the folder. And then I'm knocking off one particular folder here, just removing it to make room for the WordPress folder to go there. And then I move my WordPress folder from that location wherever I have it over to that location /var/www. So I move the entire folder as is. After I unzip it in this step, unzip, this step I make room, and this step I place it. And then after placing it, I change its user permissions. In Ubuntu, Apache process runs under this name. It's called www data. In other operating systems, it will run by another name, such as Apache will be the user. In Ubuntu, the name is this. So that's why I chose it to give recursively permissions for user and group, both, to that folder, www, which now contains all the WordPress files, all the source files. And WordPress is PHP, meaning it does not need compilation. It is just drop your code and it runs as is. And so we have dropped the code in that line, in this line, and then we modify its permissions recursively so that Apache process can modify it. And when you see that, you will find that there is a file called wp-config. Hold on. In your instance, you will find a file called wp-config.php. This file gets created. And open that file, I suggest, and read it, because it contains a lot of detail about your WordPress setup. It will have your username, your database name, your password, and a whole bunch of details about your WordPress setup. That's a critical file for WordPress, and it gets created. And if you do not do that last step, this step, then WordPress will complain and say, hey, I cannot create this file. Please create it for me.
So when does this wp-config gets created?
When you click the next button on WordPress, when it says, all right, Sparky, if you remember, all right, Sparky,
yeah,
that's what it does.
it takes the password and takes the username and then creates.
And then creates this file and places it in the right folder, and you're done. When it says, all right, Sparky, that means the file is created. The file gets technically created as a microsecond before that, before the all right, Sparky. Maybe it's less than a microsecond. So this file should show you your credentials that you saved and a whole bunch of details about your WordPress setup. And this should be placed in your /var/www. This location you should find that file. And this is a secret file, so you should mark it 400.
Oh, the wp-config?
Yeah. Yeah, it probably already marked 400.
Okay.
But make sure that you, if you're doing it by hand, that you leave it like this, 400.
So others can access.
Yeah. Yeah, you mod it 400. When it gets created, I think it will automatically create it like this. However, if you happen to be creating by hand, or if you modify it, secure it. And that concludes this exercise, this particular exercise. Do you want to finish this off or proceed ahead? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I see we just see
Proceed.
that.
Proceed. Okay.
Chef worked well with VMware's hypervisor.
Yes. Chef works anywhere you want it to run.
Doesn't make a difference.
It's a configuration
So the
manager.
VMware stuff provides a VM container, and Chef operates on the content solution.
The idea behind Chef is to do anything after the OS is loaded.
Or are you asking about how we were using it to launch nodes?
Yes, so can I create VMs? I mean, have,
Yes, yes,
can I have
yes.
four physical machines.
So like we said, Knife EC2 is there.
Knife VMware, I think there should be. Let's find out what we have.
Yeah, that was the question. So can I or create instances on the VMware, using the VMware ESX hypervisor?
So here,
Knife means
interact with VMware's vSphere. Plugin currently supports VMs, folders, templates, data stores, VLANs, and example installation. And you provide your configuration like this, and your subcommands will be something like knife, vSphere, VM, clone, new node, all that. Or other example would be knife, vSphere, data store list, knife, vSphere, data store, max free, knife, vSphere, VM execute.
so. I have a private cloud. I mean, I have, say 5 different clusters.
Mhm.
When I say cluster, like each cluster having say 5 physical servers, have something laid on top, a hypervisor layer, right? Now, say one is a brand new, has no VMs on it. The other 3 are say 100% full. I cannot create more VMs on it. So I need to have some logic to define, like somebody needs a new machine, so which of these clusters it goes on based on some logic. So that has to be like custom written, right?
So the
If-
applications such as OpenStack will do it for you.
So how does Amazon operates? It's like, I'm creating my instance in say Oregon data center, right? So inside their data center, they will also have these sort of clusters out there. So how do they figure out where to host each one of these clusters?
Where do I put my VM? On this
Yeah.
box or in this box? So
Right.
that is defined by their own internal algorithms.
Okay.
But the concept is very, very simple. You would go and you would do what is known as spread the bucket thin everywhere. Keep it spread out. So don't burden. So let's say this is the box and this is another box. 2 boxes. Small company. I would put my some workload here and some workload there. And not fill this up completely and have this one completely empty. That's a common, it's very common sense that the same concept applied to such allocations of, where do you place your VM? Is it this spot or that spot? That decision is, to begin with, it will almost be round robin. Put one here, put one there, put one here, put one there. If this becomes bigger for some reason, all the bigger machines are going here, then you allocate some more here and you adjust. There are these algorithms that are public. It's not. They are public algorithms. How do you allocate resources? Resource allocation algorithms are available in textbooks. Pretty much, they're not secret. The textbook algorithms, how do you allocate resources among a demand for a resource? So there is a demand on a resource. You have these resource 1, resource 2, and you have a demand being placed. I run my VM please, or run my VM please. You can allocate that resource to these demands based on a simple method like round robin, you can do weighted average or some other average over time. And in textbooks, you will find references to these. I'll pull up those references for you.
So why did you ask? What was behind the question?
Oh no, I was just trying to
I think it's a valid question, and they need to clarify.
No, I'm saying, but some of the more interesting part is what was the
Why?
thinking when you asked the
Yeah,
question?
internally, maybe the question is, if
Use case.
if the use case becomes an example.
yeah, and this case, I mean, it's like I have these two boxes today. How do I figure out that these two are full and I need a
When do I need a third box?
when do I need a third box?
This capacity utilization concept comes into play here. Is when I am growing and I see my box number 1 is 80% full already, and my box number 2 is 75% full. Maybe it is time to start thinking about what box do I need next. Because, yeah, so that's how it operates in your capacity planning. You plan ahead and see what your forecast is looking like. If the forecast is going up or going down, maybe you want to start selling this box because the capacity demand is going to go down. So you don't need this box anymore because all of that demand can be serviced by only one box. That becomes a capacity planning exercise. In the flip case of that would be if you see that your demand is going to grow up, that your box is 80% full and the other box is 75. You want to have, being able to service more customers in the next year. You have to buy a third box and put that in your production environment. So you can bring it on. So you can then migrate your load and put some of these boxes, some of the VM there and some of these VM from here there, and just spread the load and keep everybody breathing comfortably. Right? That's how you would distribute the load of VMs on boxes. It's pretty much like what managers would do with workload on people. Right? You have one person overloaded, you spread some love.
Yeah. Amazon has the auto scaling policy templates, all right? Amazon AWS.
Yes, the auto scaling comes into play in a slightly different context. It comes from the user's perspective, where you want to scale your machines and number of VMs you want up and down or out and in, as opposed to the capacity planning is the flip game, the other perspective. It's the service provider's problem. Capacity management is the service provider's problem. Scaling up and down or scaling out and in is the user's problem. Right? Because you want your application to scale out or in.
So Amazon's in the game of presenting an illusion of infinite.
Yes.
Right.
So, very rightly said. Exactly.
They have to have a sophisticated capacity management process to make sure that illusion is maintained.
They apparently infinite resources they show and they claim, and turns out to be true for most of the cases. Have you ever run into a situation where you try to start a VM and then it doesn't?
No, so but you say like it's a service provider's issue. Like suppose I'm running a consumer website on AWS and my site has peaked up by the capacity like 90%, 95%. So then I can set up a auto scaling policy to automatically create an instance when my load goes up by. Is that it? That's a policy.
Exactly, that's how you operate. And
So it's the user, right? Like it's not Amazon provide. I mean, Amazon is providing, I know, but
So you scale up, so you start another VM, but the question for Amazon is there available hardware to put it on?
on Amazon, right.
they need to be servicing your demand, and you need to be able to understand: are you needing one more VM?
Right.
How do you know whether you need one more VM? When you find out that your VM that you have is unable to meet your customers' needs. An example would be your CPU utilization is 85%. You want to probably trigger another VM and spread the load. If your storage is getting consumed on the hard disk that gets attached directly to the box, you will get a bigger box. If your RAM is hitting like 80% full, 90% full, or sometimes 100% full, that becomes a problem. Then your pages will not load. Apache will drop pages. Or some of the things something will, your users will start complaining about, hey, what are you doing? Why the site doesn't load? Why does it take so much time? Like Obamacare, but why doesn't it work? And come November 15th, you will see it again.
So does Amazon, how they must have monitoring on their side when users are requesting for instances, like they scale it dynamically, they will take that much like white space all the time.
Yes.
And they must be having some.
They have their own. So there are two perspectives here that I know you brought it up. It's very important to think about from a overall perspective. The perspective is that of a consumer of services, and the other perspective is that of the service provider. The service provider has to provide this illusion of infinity. It is not infinite.
It's not
infinite. But it's the illusion. I'm just saying that
We can provide any.
we can service your demand. Ask for whatever you want, as long as you're able to pay for it, we'll service it. That's the illusion that they want to create, and they seem to be successful.
Because there was never an instance when they were not able to create a instance. They were not able to.
There have been cases. There have been cases where you just could not create an instance whenever you wanted it, and those cases are called downtime. Like Amazon has run into downtime in many times. It's not 100% all the time. Almost every service provider on this planet has run into a reliability problem. It's a fact of life. The internet is unreliable by definition. It's a loosely coupled network. So things go down, things go bad. They happen all the time. The idea behind our use of cloud is we know it is bad, but our services that we deliver should not be as bad. Still not 100%. Right? Just not as bad. 100% is probably theoretically impossible.
So their automated infrastructure on the service provider side is another cloud or
Yeah, they have their own service bus and other networks that
which is monitoring all of these.
The whole purpose of that
They have
network
a
is
lot
to
of data centers, and each one of those data centers has some finite number of physical servers. And so in theory, you could max it.
Like so in Amazon, I have a site running on say 1 million. Do they sell as a service like the number of users increase, then auto create the instances?
It's right there in your console. It's called auto scaling. It's available. And if you use it, you have to pay for
Your
it.
application software has to accommodate
Yes.
Okay.
And
that.
now
They can take care of it.
like if you take classic WordPress like we just deployed, you add one more WordPress box, it doesn't scale like that. Because it is not scalable. WordPress as an application does not scale just like that. You cannot do it that way.
So we like to talk about, my team likes to talk about Apple cloud native applications designed to work in a cloud way, as opposed to lift and shift traditional client server applications that are dropped on top of the cloud. That they don't take care of, they don't take advantage of some of these things.
Cloud the application has to be aware of the fact that it is running on the cloud, that it can scale out and in, or other older applications like WordPress, reasonably modern application that does not scale. Like you can not throw more nodes and have it scale randomly automatically. It doesn't work like that. It is actually craft out a method of dealing with that setup, and you can modify certain parameters in the application itself to make it scalable. So then you can now run CNN.com and have global base of users accessing and hitting it, even though it is still WordPress. WordPress, as you download from WordPress.org and set it up on a single box like that, you have one more box, it's not going to scale for you. It doesn't work just like it doesn't work automatically. It's a legacy app, if you will.
Yeah, because your application has to be
Okay.
cloud like applications written in any programming language. They open up a database connections, they have a connection pool. So maybe if you if you spin up another instance, this may not be able to spawn off that many database connections. Like they may pre-instantiate a certain number of connections.
And even if you put your database away from your local box, then we have just one box right now. It runs Apache, MySQL, PHP. You just take the MySQL portion away from it and put it in a separate box. That becomes a possibility, but then that box itself becomes a limitation. It's only one box, even if it is big box. Then in that case, you should not even use the box at all. Instead, use a scalable service available from, say, Amazon that will give you database as a service. And then you put your RDS. So you put your MySQL database in the RDS service. And now you have a scalable backend. Again, illusion of infinitely scalable database. MySQL, very big, very as small as 5 GB and scalable as big as you want. And now you can get multiple Apache servers, all running WordPress, connecting to that same backend database. Now all of them can connect to the same service. And all of these Apache instances that you have WordPress running, you want to have one more layer, which I would call the traffic cop or the administrator, the load balancer. That will say you go here, 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 here. So like a person who will arbitrate, who should receive the traffic, and then the user coming from outside will go, okay, you go here, and that person will then have that sustained connection through and through all the way to the backend database and service that user's request of maybe creating a hello page or putting my
Stop trade. Stop trade or anything.
yeah, any kind of interaction that the user may have. Like I'll put my son's picture like you did on your WordPress instance. You want to post your son's picture on WordPress site. You would send that picture file over. That file will actually go through the arbitrator, the Elastic Load Balancer, or also known as HA Proxy. HA Proxy is the open source project that's used in the Elastic Load Balancer application available from Amazon, for example. And the ELB will first get that picture, and it will hand it off straight to the box that you got associated with. And then that picture needs to get stored somewhere, right?
S3 or EBS.
Yes, now you're talking. See, you just modified WordPress. WordPress by definition stores that picture file in a folder called WP content /uploads/year/month/file name.
But that has a limitation too.
Right? Now that becomes a folder on a file in a folder in this box. What about that box? And so tomorrow, say your friend visits the same site and the load balancer says, now you go here. And this box doesn't have the file. So you'll say, hey, where is Sandesh's picture? I cannot find it. You put that in that box and
It's only on one box, but
yeah, so you just clean it out. They have like 10 different servers. Only one of the boxes will have the picture. So you want to modify WordPress to not save picture files
On the
locally. Instead, save them somewhere else. An example would be S3. So each one of these instances of WordPress need to know that, you know what, don't store anything in here at all. Keep them stateless. That's a change you need to do in the application itself. This is an example of a change that, what was the word, forklift applications, what was the word you used?
Lift and shift.
Lift and shift. Lift and shift. The applications do not know. They have no idea. But then now you know that this is the problem, that the particular file, Sandesh.jpg, will get stored in that file folder location, and you don't want that to happen at all. So you need to keep that entire folder structure stateless. And if that is stateless, then it doesn't even matter if the box is up or down. You can throw it away if you don't like, or scale more as you want, because it is now truly stateless. So the goal is to actually becoming stateless. And once you are there, then your application can scale comfortably out and in.
When you say stateless,
State is the user state. Like an example I was giving about was that he has a picture of his son, which is Sunday.jpg, some file.
so how far do you extend that? So you have to have
Those
those
static
static files.
You have static files, your database items, your login sessions. So 3 examples, right? You need to keep that thing intact. So if you have a session going on with the user coming through a load balancer all the way to that box that you have here. Let's imagine 10 boxes here, and a backend service over there, and a load balancer in the front. So I'm coming in through like this. I'm approaching and interacting with that box, that application server. That application server needs to remain stateless. All the state needs to go away from it to the backend, or away from it to some other place where this JPG image I stored here. I don't want to store it here because other guys do not have it.
So the backend is still going to be on a particular server. It could be
S3.
Wow.
S3.
So state gets maintained somewhere. You'd like it to be maintained on the end user device or some kind of storage system. So,
Yeah. On those boxes, we want to make them ephemeral. How do you say that? Ephemeral. Don't make them ephemeral. In that, you should be able to like kill the box, and it doesn't matter. Because all that user information about what that user session was, what that state was, a file added, a video added, a file removed, anything changes that you change, all of that needs to go away in some other service. Like single storage service where it stores files, you know that. And it's another redundant, reliable, resilient service. But outside of these boxes, it doesn't sit here. It has to go away. And your data entries, like you're typing something in a blog post and say hello world and this and that, and I write a little nice story and put some Facebook link and all that. That entry needs to go through that box all the way to the backend database service and stay there. And so these boxes can come and go or die, and get created more, and it doesn't even matter. So that's the user's perspective.
So your application logic could go away and you'd have downtime, but everything that was being created would still be there.
Yes.
Once the box came back up.
Yes. And your downtime may not be the case because you know what? Even if that one box out of these 10 go away, you still have 9. Right? So yeah, it may be a failed login attempt, but the next attempt will succeed. You have to go to a different box. You will that box goes away.
Load balancer knows that oh, one is down, so these 9 have to serve.
Now another problem comes in that you may not be familiar with, which is unless you are a regular WordPress user, you may not be aware of it. The fact that there is somebody who needs to administer WordPress, meaning get WordPress updates, or add new plugins, or make some source code changes, or some other changes you need to make in the theme, look and feel, or style. That is not what a user would typically do. Right? So these changes, so let's say on my site, I have WordPress logo on top somewhere, and I want to change that picture logo and use some other funny cat picture. Just for example, I want to put cat logo on top, and this GitHub cat, AutoCAD. So I would put that AutoCAD there. Now, if I change it as an administrator user, I come in, log in, and change it on box number 7. How does it? How do other boxes become aware of it? But if I change it as an admin, I log into this box and I change my logo from the provided logo, WordPress logo. I change that to the AutoCAD logo from my own cat. This box number 7 will have it changed. And at that moment, I will see the change. But then other people, I want them to also see the change. I'm now changing the source itself of the package that I downloaded from WordPress itself because I'm the administrator user, not a regular user.
So I need
So
to
you
push
should-
that
yes,
change usage
exactly.
server.
Hey,
That's where Chef can, yeah.
actually, in practice, you use Chef here. The reason you don't is that what you want to do is dedicate a box for administrator usage. So when the admin comes in, give it to a dedicated box. So go on the side, box number 11, and you go operate on there. And when you're done, you do a synchronization. That's it. As simple as that. Or you do an rsync. Rsync. Just flow rsync.
Images folder.
Images the whole folder.
Yeah.
And copy the whole thing.
Static content, HTML, JSP,
Everything.
anything.
Just copy. Rsync. Only the changes will flow.
Yeah.
And you're done. So administrator comes in, changes the logo on the box number 11. Only can be dedicated for an admin. One box. And you configure it that way that whenever the admin will log in, it will go exactly to that box. And that becomes the source of change. And then you let it flow to all the boxes.
Just, offing job set up to run at a certain time.
And it just goes.
It will propagate the changes.
That's how, and this will be one way of implementing. You don't need Chef.
Yeah.
There are already built-in native tools that you can just use. So you just propagate the change across to all the number of servers. You have 10 of these that users are hitting. These are probably bigger boxes. And the admin is only one guy. Just hit a small tiny T1 micro, maybe T2 micro, and deal with it, done with it, and just propagate the change to the main boxes. And you still have it synchronized. Your state changed, but still synchronized. And again, stateless. In that, we already know the copy that we got in this exercise was coming from WordPress.org. But now we want to modify it. We want to put our own logo, our own branding, our own look and feel, everything our own. So we'll do that in box number 11 and still synchronize with all these 10 boxes. This is one way of scaling up if you want to scale.
Scaling up.
Actually, scaling up is the wrong word. The reason I say scaling up is because I'm reading another book called Scaling Up. I should not be using the word scaling up.
Yeah,
The book is called New Book. It's I Agree Rao, Sutton and I Agree Rao. You should read that book. Very good book. Scaling Up to Excellence. Just came out a couple months ago. One from your state and one from your state. I'm just making it up. Sutton and Rao from Andhra. Two professors in Stanford. This book. Very good book.
Excellent. Scaling up excellence. Yeah. So we do that like
This is what I was.
previous application where we change the logos for the airlines, airline images like Southwest or and default perform they have a Boeing logo. When the airline buys this product, we have to make the folder specifically for Southwest or any airline, and then drop the images file, drop the HTML index file, proper index file, or make it link properly. So we have only 2 servers, so we go and manually. We didn't have that admin box kind of thing. We have not 2, 4 instances. So I go and make one change, and then let rsync come in and then propagate the change. We have rsync, but rsync only runs at certain times. So what I do is I go and manually do SCP all 4 processes. But if you can
do either cron or do manual run. Both are valid choices.
Right. Yeah. So we very commonly use.
That becomes an example of scaling out.
Yeah.
I should not be using the word
But
scaling
we
out.
cannot copy the 200 servers like Facebook or LinkedIn. If you have 100 servers, I cannot go and SCP to each and every.
So it should be automated.
Automated.
SCP is handling.
Yeah.
Works.
Rsync or
Yeah. Doing it 100 times is boring. Yes. So scaling out. Thank you for catching me. Because that was on top of my mind as I was reading that book. It's a good book on growing. Actually, scaling can mean shrinking also. So I agree with Rao.
No, it says
Agi Rao, he Americanized his first name.
Is it a IT specific thing? Or
No, it's general business book.
business.
Yeah, general purpose business book. So I wanted to go over some of these things that I have a video on. I pasted a link on that for you to watch later on. So I'm not going to play the video here. This link is on here. This 3:59 p.m. This link. Number 2 from the top. This link plays this video here, which you may want to play later on because I hate listening to myself. So there is this video plays for about how many? 19 minutes. Error occurred? What do you mean error occurred? It's essentially a okay. Shut up. So another thing on illusion of infinity, which is here. See that? They just told us, every one of you and me have this. What does it mean? Do we have 6 times unlimited? So that's what they are trying to create. In unlimited space to Google Apps users for Google Drive.
Your cloud genius is running on
Labs.
Google.
So, and I'm like growing my storage because I'm now transmitting all my pictures there, which is what I want to do. Yeah, I'll put all my pictures in the Google Cloud. So my picture storage was like 1 GB before, now it's 24 GB. That's what one of my home boxes is doing, is sending pictures over to Google because it is unlimited. So I have like 0.5 terabyte of pictures. So it'll go slowly. In the next 30 days or so, it'll trickle. But the illusion seems to work. In real life, it is not infinite. You know that. In real life, what they're doing essentially is being fully aware that not everybody is doing it this way. Most people are like maybe 60, 100 GB, not more than that, in any cloud storage. People are not really using it up to the limits. They want to have a big box, but not want to consume it. Because it is actually practically hard to consume. Even if I have the data to push, it takes me 30 days to just send the data. And what about bringing it down? Take another 40, 50 days? Can I wait that long? I don't know. And that's a challenge. So it's a very slow trickle, but I seem to like this illusion. I really, really enjoy it. And I want you to know that you have it. All of you.
The access channels.
Yes, and it's limited by, I think, limited by your Comcast ISP or any ISP you have, and also on the other side, they are throttling it also. They don't want flood incoming. So they will throttle some of it, at least in the photograph section. In the drive, it's a different SLA. So this segment will give you a faster SLA. This is the highest SLA. So your emails will flow very rapidly, quickly, even if it's a large attachment, it will go quickly. Second level is your Google Drive synchronization will become faster, but photo sync forever, really slow. And just so you know, your accounts have it, you can use it. Even though you cannot use it inside Boeing, but that's a different story. So this video is actually sitting in a Google Drive folder and is played through a browser, just like YouTube does. But this is a concept called Google Drive Embed. It's somewhat new. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but you can take a video object in Google Drive and expose it to audience by permission, and then embed it in a browser window, like an iframe, like this. And so it's not a YouTube video. It's a Google Drive video with access permissions for you. And I'm rendering it through this secured site, which only you can access. So this video will describe what cloud architecture is, but I'll not play it here. But I just wanted you to read that, listen to that video when you get a moment. But I'll talk through these slides at least to give you some perspective that I might remember. The video is about a year old, but still good. It's not stale. Concepts do not die.
Yeah.
So
Same here is same, you know. Like,
I think VI is a beautiful concept.
yeah,
I like it. I like it.
I learned that's the same thing. I believe, right?
Yes.
Those days I knew 100 comments, 50 comments maybe. Now I only remember 20. The same comments is using. Yeah.
It's in your finger. If you ask me what is the command, I cannot actually tell you.
No.
I had to really think about, okay, what do I press? Oh, look at the keyboard. Oh, that's the key I press. I see. Like this JKLH. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is beautiful. And I just have to think about what those keys are, but they work.
Oh yeah, really.
JKLH. And the J key has a little dash. You can even close your eyes and feel it. Do you know that?
What is that?
So on the J key,
Oh, there is a dash. Yeah. What does that mean?
that means you can close your eyes and feel what J is.
So if you're a touch typist, there's what's called home row position.
I didn't know that.
Where
I
your
see.
index fingers are on
Yeah.
certain keys.
I see.
What is it called?
Home row. It's where
Home
your
row.
key-
I never learned typing. I just spent it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So,
You know, home row, you have your fingers positioned like this, and every motion is based on, every typing is based on motions from one.
J
I
and
did
then
not know this is called home row. I learned typing through brute force, hard knocks way. Nobody taught me, and
I
so.
don't know how many people learn that anymore.
But yeah, I can feel where the keyboard is without looking at it, and I can detect it. So there are two places, F and J, two places. There's a little.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you need to go.
So that's how I locate it, and I can operate on VI with eyes closed. I don't know how I will do that, but you can. So a picture representation of what a hybrid cloud may be, and hybrid cloud, basically, there is a new joke in which Dilbert says, when the boss asks, what is hybrid cloud? Dilbert says, it is a combination of one technology you don't understand with another.
So the joke really.
Yeah, there's a Dilbert. I just saw it a few days ago. It's a combination of what? So it's a combination of anything, actually. This picture actually is technically inaccurate now. The reason is that you can have a hybrid cloud purely in the public domain. I mean public cloud, not public domain. Because you can mix and match Amazon cloud and HP cloud. That becomes a hybrid.
That's what is the hybrid is now?
That
Not
can
the-
also be hybrid. Hybrid can mean anything,
anything.
right? Mix and match of two technologies that you don't understand. So you can mix and match EC2, Amazon and HP cloud. That becomes hybrid. Doesn't have to be private and public mixing. Public and public mixing can also become hybrid. Anything which is not homogeneous is hybrid. So that's a new way of people discussing. These are all ideas people make stuff up essentially. And so the new way people have been talking about is not necessarily just public and private mix, but can be a public and public mix also. Just a way of referencing. So having said, from a cloud provider's perspective, when they provide you some infrastructure, like, you're talking about this Amazon guys who are providing us services. What do they need to do to enable SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, so the segments here? What do they need to do to enable these services? Are these elements that you have to provide these core services underneath? And if I will take a few minutes to highlight some of the key aspects here.
Then you have well-published APIs so that
Yes.
can access.
And in fact, specific to Amazon, the mandate internal is something like this: that if there are two groups operate internal to Amazon, they need to talk through an API.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a mandate.
It's a joke.
Yeah, no, it's not a joke. It's serious.
You mean for services?
Yeah, any communication across teams has to be through API. So you cannot exchange documents or agree upon some concept, but you have to publish an API and operate through that. Anything you do from a implementation of a product or a service perspective has to be done through a programmatic method. That's a mandate, corporate mandate, and that has been taken to, I think, the core of Amazon. So any internal services that they develop, they will be publishing an API along with it.
I see.
And so any other consumer of those services will be using that through the API that is published on their internal pages.
So everything is service
Everything is service oriented, even internal tools,
Hmm.
which means you have to, when you come up with a service, you have to publish an API on your team level. And then on your team page, you document it. And then have other companies or other team members from other teams
Oh, yeah.
use your API, use your services through that service-oriented architecture that you define. And that's a mandate. That has been a really good thing to begin with, and it has grown amazingly. And so that's a good practice that some
Amazon was doing that even before the
yes,
cloud.
even before cloud. It is an old mandate, and they have done it, and they have really adopted it amazingly nicely. And that is some other big companies do not yet have. But it's a good thing to have. It's hard to pull off unless there is a corporate mandate. An example would be that small teams, like 5% teams. In fact, they have this other thing called, you may have heard it outside. It's called two pizza teams.
2P,
You heard that?
2PT.
Two P. So your team should not be bigger than that can be fed by two pizzas.
So 2PTs.
So you bring two pizza boxes. Everybody should be nicely fed. If you are not feeding them with two pizza boxes, then you're too big. You should break it down. That's the optimal size of a team, according to Amazon. Your team should not be bigger than, say,
Every service is run by 2 pizza teams.
that's the idea. Meaning you cannot have more than, let's say, how many the pizza is 8 slices. So let's say not more than 16 members in a team. That's how you think. Assuming that one person will eat 1 slice. Oh, otherwise your team is smaller. So if your pizza has 8 slices, you get two boxes, you get 16 slices. You should have at most 16 members in a team. No matter what you do, not more than that. If you're growing more than that, then you need to have another team and divide your work. And this makes people and things and projects manageable. That's the way they think. I think I agree.
So,
I agree.
yeah, it's like one manager, 2 team member ratio, not the project service.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's a team size, not project size, team size. So your teams should be 2 P teams. Meaning
Yeah.
in order 2 pizza boxes, you should be all good for dinner. Assuming, what about you? So that's the optimal size. I think they think like that, which is good. And the agreement among teams that they will operate not through email, but through well-published API. So you have a consumer of a service that you create, that consumer of that service will interact with you through API. So whatever you produce and you send, it's all software, by the way, in Amazon. So that's whatever you produce and you provide will be consumed by them through the API. Even if it is like financial reporting, it all goes through JSON objects, is what I understand. I have not seen it, but I understand that even if it is financial reporting of some sort, you send a JSON object and they'll receive the JSON and then publish and visualize and make charts and graphs and all that completely programmatized, like totally. This is amazing.
In Amazon?
Yes, that's what I heard. I don't know. I have not seen it.
If she works at Amazon.
Ask her. Yeah, just check with her. I have not seen it, but I've heard that this is what it boils down to. Is your teams operating with other teams, you have to go through an API to interact with them, to collect data. You cannot just hey, email me something. No. Call me through API, use your key, and then you access it.
So, like, if I want to know how many Xbox Ones with the new Destiny game being sold together, then probably they give you API, and I like if my team wants the info, like I have to go to a small program and then call that service.
Write a query and get your answer. Instead of emailing somebody, hey, can you produce that report for me? And then some DBA will run a SQL query and
Split by region, split by country, split by age group. I think maybe that kind of thing.
It's self-service, essentially. So that's how they have structured their organization, which is nice. Now, how does it translate to cloud computing? Essentially, if you want to provide these services, like we have been discussing these services like SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, and hardware services that we seem to have been using, at least for some time. Under the covers, they are providing a whole bunch of services just to deliver us these things. And that's the concept I tried to describe in that video that you will watch.
What's the hardware service? I mean,
Hardware as a service can mean that you get bare metal access to hardware on your remote location. So here is an example. I'll show you an example. Log in. So here I get See, this is the hardware I got. I'm actually getting raw physical access to physical boxes, direct hardware. And this is the motherboard, the processor, RAM. So this is not VM. This is OpenStack deployed on these boxes for me by this company. This is what I would classify as hardware available as a service. And you get physical box, meaning now you don't have to deploy VM on top of VM. You can deploy your hypervisor on this box. And then you can, in practice, you would install some OS. And then, like Ubuntu, for example, or CentOS, and then install OpenStack on top. And, and configure out this kind of a setup where you have two boxes, one containing your controller node, the other side, and this one is the compute node. This box and that box. This is what you will end up installing if you have two boxes in the cloud available to you as hardware, not as VMs. In Amazon, in Rackspace, in HP Cloud, everybody gives you VMs. But when it is hardware available as a service, you actually get boxes and a connection to the box. And then through some method, a programmatic method, you can install OS on top. And then you have these two boxes loading some base OS. And then configure this box like your compute instance, meaning you will load your compute instances here. So you have hypervisor running here, and you will carve out of this box small little VMs and hand off to your internal users. And on the other box is your controller, which is what OpenStack will run. We'll have a database running and a RabbitMQ running, identity, image services, compute management, UI for the use. Are you familiar with these phrases or terms, or should we go over those at some point?
I'm familiar with them, but I'm guessing most of these people
I'm
are
not.
not going into
I see. Okay. So I think I'll take a step back and I'll go deep dive in OpenStack itself. So I'll do that. Let me go away from this chart right now and stick to this discussion. I'll come to OpenStack. I think so. I understand that only you are familiar with. Not everybody is. So good to know. Good to know.
OpenStack architecture?
OpenStack architecture and its rendition on, say, Mirantis. There is a 7-day trial available, so we can use that. You will get two boxes in physical boxes. In California, you can operate from here for 7 days, free. That will be an opportunity for us to use. If you still want more, then we have to get boxes here. And beyond 7, if you still want to play with OpenStack and actually go deeper, we have to get boxes. We'll get that. Or maybe you bring your box from home and you have a laptop that I gave you, and so we'll have one more machine. We'll bring something together and do it from scratch here. We'll figure out what it takes to build up from zero a complete functional OpenStack setup. May not be scalable big time, but it'll work. We can do that, and I'll bring whatever is needed to make it happen. So this video will go over what my thoughts are that I'm going to try to give you perspective on. So I'm going to zip through this. I'll let you watch that video segment. But I'm trying to remember what I said in that video. It's hard. It's impossible for me. So I'll let you read that. But I'm just trying to identify some salient things that I may have to bring up. Probably not. I hate looking at PowerPoint slides. You can tell. Yeah, some outages. Who cannot? You have to use.
We like to cook up a lot of PowerPoint with 100 lines in the
With what? With a lot of PowerPoint, with what?
You cannot work in Boeing with PowerPoint.
Yes.
You live and breathe PowerPoint.
And they like to jam as much info
As much info. Oh wow, you're like Microsoft. So yes, Microsoft people also do the same thing. These are some of the slides that I created a while ago just to help me talk in a video, but I never use slides. I should just close it out. You know, I don't know. I just dislike slides. I don't know why. The other thing that I would like to point out is this aspect of what I call, and this will be interesting. So there is a typo in the video. The word that I have used is complementor, not complementor. And you're familiar with the two different words? Are you?
Complementary.
So this is a different word. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
So the word is. So let me.
So complement.
I'll walk you through. Hold on. This is a business concept, right? It's a business concept. So if I may say, you are looking good. That's a compliment. That's not what I mean. Okay, I mean the other word. So here is how I would describe. You may have heard me say this, so pardon if I'm repeating. If you are the company, in classic textbook that I mentioned, I may have mentioned, so if I'm forgetting or if I'm repeating, just tell me. That there's a textbook on this called, I think I may have mentioned it, Co-opetition. Did I? Did I mention this book? Are you looking? No, I did not. Okay, I forget what I already said, so I checked. So there's a book called Co-opetition. It means you compete and cooperate at the same time. Samsung and Apple, do they cooperate? Where? To build the hardware, they will cooperate. Why would they cooperate?
Samsung builds some stuff.
Yes, so that segment I would classify as supplier relationship. So if you are the company here, like let's call it COM, the company. So Samsung becomes a supplier, right? They supply something to Apple. So this is the Apple company. So they're not really complementors, right? They are a supplier relationship. The way to think about it is the company in between. You have suppliers here. You have complementors. So look at the spelling here is E, complementors. And here on the other hand, you have competitors. They fight with you, right? They are friends with you. They're buddies, they are fighting with you. And they supply you, the suppliers supply you stuff. And you, who's here on top? Customer, yeah, yes. So you have the classic diagram goes like this. In between, your customer, your supplier, your cooperator, also known as complementor, and your enemy, or whatever you call it, or a competition, right? So that's where this word comes from, co-opetition, where there are certain situations where you do this behavior and this behavior at the same time with the same company. Now I'm looking for an example. Then I heard this example of Apple, APL, with Samsung being a supplier, not really a competitor. They're actually a competitor, very strong one, by the way. When you have Galaxy S5 and the iPhone 6 Plus and 6, these products are competing, right? Who is the complementor here? Yeah, this is you. You buy the iPhone, right? And this is the company called Flextronics that makes provide parts to it, and maybe sometimes Samsung here, right? Who's here? These are the complementors. You have Galaxy S5, Samsung.
These are rivals. These are enemy.
Yeah, it's the rivals.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have
Who are here?
you mean complement
These are friends.
friends.
Yeah.
Like Gorilla Glass supplier.
They are supplier, right?
Yeah. Like
So they're not
Samsung.
supplier, but friends.
Samsung also.
They're not friends. They're suppliers
Right.
or competitors or rivals.
Yeah.
Right? But
But
who's
they
here?
supply some chips to. They used to supply some chips.
You're missing something very important. So think of it like this. When you have a cup of coffee, just had it. Would you be interested in a cup of tea also?
No.
No. So why? Because tea and coffee kind of compete with each other, right? Good. Now, if you are in the business of selling coffee, would you be friends with sugar company, Splenda company? That's what I'm looking for here in this box.
Common thing.
So
Verizon.
yes,
So, network
yes,
optical.
yeah, Verizon or AT&T. And so these companies complement what you provide. They help make it sweeter, right? And so there are
OtterBox.
OtterBox, yeah, cases, yeah, cases,
Cases.
yeah, protective cases. So and you are the customer, right? So there are cases where you become buddies and real nice buddies here, right? Verizon and Apple, AT&T and Apple, T-Mobile and Apple, and all worldwide phone companies that sell iPhones and Apple are good partners. They are called partners in the classic sense. No, AT&T doesn't fit here at all. Not here. AT&T is not here. In this box, you will have Samsung, you will have Nokia, things like that, right? Now, an example where a company like, say, HP and Dell, do you think they? Sorry, let me draw it again. If you have the example of HP in the middle, the center, the company we're talking about is HP. Where would you put Dell? Here, here, or here?
And they compete everywhere. Both of them. Yes. They'll compete.
Dell competes with HP, so this is a good location. Sorry, this is a good location, not this. And Dell doesn't supply to HP, so maybe this is not also the location for Dell, so not this. But what other roles where you will find Dell and HP good buddies, really good buddies? And they go like have dinner together and all that. It's amazing to see that, but have you seen such a thing?
Printers.
No, not really.
Yeah, they'll
Yeah,
go to printers.
I know.
They'll go to HP.
They go to Lexmark.
Lexmark.
Yeah, they'll put their label on top and sell.
Which is still made by HP.
Right. Who knows? So the idea when Dell and HP will be good buddies is that case when they are dealing with a supplier. So they will gang up and talk to Microsoft.
To buy what is that to supply what?
Yeah. When they're dealing with a supplier, not to supplier, but dealing with a supplier. So I should say like this. When they're dealing with a supplier, they are really good buddies. You know why? Both of them want Windows at a cheaper price. Right? When they, yes, exactly. They go buddy, hand in hand, party together, and basically strategize how to negotiate with Microsoft. And same with Intel. When they want a lower price CPU or lower price motherboard, they'll go gang up and also bring all other companies in the planet and all gang up together to fight with Intel to lower down the price. And when they go selling their products, they will fight among themselves. But that's the game that is classically known as co-opetition. And there is a book on this topic, and the book is by, what's his name? Neil Buff and Brandon Berger. This guy is from Yale, I think, and he's from HBS. So two professors, very good book, very short book, and very interesting to read. Even I liked it. Very, very nice book. and it describes co-opetition, and that's the concept that I tend to describe in this video, which is what I'm drawing here, is the company, and maybe I should open up that slide deck to walk you through this picture, which is the company, the customers, the suppliers, and competitors and complementors. In the video, you will find this is a typo. So there's a typo in the video. I did not correct the video. I just called it out that there is a typo. So this is the word, and I do not mean, hey, you're looking nice. Not that word, but this meaning. And let me describe that. Was that my phone or somebody?
Oh, no,
Okay. So the idea behind when you start thinking about architecture can mean anything and everything to anybody and everybody. Right? It's a very vague word. So let's understand what that architecture, what we want to mean by it, and how do we define, who's right. If you have a definition of architecture and you have another one, how do we settle? Who do you ask? And the best one to ask is ask the customer, right? What do you want? What is the business requirement? And that's where the discussion is driving towards, is to understanding business requirements. And the discussion is around forces that shape businesses. When you are operating in some business, you will have a customer, you will have a supplier or a bunch of suppliers, and some complementors that will cooperate with you, like airline companies, customer of Boeing, or are they complementors of Boeing, or are they suppliers of Boeing? Where do you fit airlines for you? I think I'll put them in the red box, right? For Boeing in the center,
Yeah.
Emirates will be the red colored item, right? Is there any other color, any other item you want to put Emirates in? Probably not. They're purely a customer. You don't get anything from them except money, right? Who would you call Boeing's complementors? Like, who do you call your cooperators?
Engine makers.
Their suppliers.
Right. Engine maker will become supplier. So who is the complementor?
Airlines.
Federal government.
Airlines are customers.
Airlines is a customer. So from your perspective, what would be the blue box? GE, maybe. Depending on, but Airbus is the orange box, right? Airbus is orange box, if I may say that.
No, so yeah, supplier. GE is also a supplier.
Yeah, GE is a supplier.
It's also a complement with whatever we need to enable us to sell airplanes.
More.
One of the things we
Oh, financing.
Sell more.
Airports need to exist.
Yeah,
Financing.
financing. Yes, financing. What else? That makes it easy on Emirates to buy it from you. Make it easy on Emirates to buy it from you is the blue box.
Control systems need to exist.
Anything that makes it difficult for Boeing to buy from you is the orange box. Anything that makes it easy on Emirates to buy from you is the blue box. Easy, the blue box. Orange is the difficult box. Makes it difficult for Emirates is the orange box. And blue will make it easy on Emirates to buy Boeing planes. So those are the forces that you should think of when you discuss the overall picture of what game you're playing. These are the games businesses play. In fact, that's another book. The name is Games Businesses Play. A professor called what? Another very good book. HBS. Games Businesses Play. It's not a technical book, but it's a good book. So from this discussion, the idea is to look at whatever your situation going to be from a product perspective, from a business perspective. Understand what those players are is a first step, so that you will get the right perspective of what you're thinking about, what you're discussing about. Without this discussion, you can be in a vacuum as to you may be missing out. So if you think about this item and put Boeing in the center, where would Nitin fit?
No. I wish I could buy a plane.
Where would you fit Nitin?
Competition maybe. Complement. It's a supplier.
Yeah, you supply your time, your energy, your intellectual horsepower, and you give your services to Boeing, and you get paid. Right? So you're a supplier to Boeing. You're a supplier. Believe it or not, employees are suppliers.
The customers test my
Yeah.
time. That's when I fly.
Yes, that's a different Nitin though. Right? That's a Nitin that spends money. This Nitin that works for Boeing does not spend money.
Falls
Yeah, and you are a customer of customer. You don't actually spend money on Boeing. You spend money with Emirates. Right? Just Emirates being an example. So you are a customer of Emirates, not Boeing, and you are a supplier to Boeing strictly in this sense. And most people end up making that mistake that, you know what, we are in the center, but no, you're not. Realize that. It's a critical realization that you are not Boeing. Sorry, but you're not. In this context, you are not Boeing. You are a supplier to Boeing. So think rationally. You know, this is how I suppose that you would think. Think rationally. When Boeing makes money, you may be making money, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
So that's how you should think from a business perspective. Is you are a supplier. So if you say that to your boss, he will not like it. Honestly.
Yeah.
But are you not Boeing? Yes, we are. But, you know, practical. Be practical. Be honest. This is what it is. And this is not me speaking. These are big-time professors that have studied. And this, by the way, is this Nail Buff, the Brandon Berger Nail Buff book, is a highly regarded book on business. It's an MBA textbook. And that's where this thing comes from. There's another similar diagram like this called, what is it called? 5 forces that shape the competition. 5 forces. Just search this word, you will find it. 5 forces. Another similar diagram, another Harvard Business Review article, a very old 1970s article that does a conceptually similar discussion. But then there are 5 forces. Slight variation to this. This is a modern interpretation of the same idea. So these aspects essentially translate to an IT implication of each and every one of these ovals. If you have these 5 boxes, each one of them will have an IT implication to it. That's what I'm going into now. So what are the IT implications to customer? Here is a flavor. Here is a quick listing. You know, what does it mean? What does it boil down to the red box, to the red oval, to the customer? What do they need from an IT perspective? Is this short listing? It is not exhaustive. It is just illustrative. They need a CRM. Actually, we need a CRM for them. They don't need it. We need it. We, as in the company, needs it. Sales management, shipping, logistics, returns, services, support management, social network, sentiment analysis. You know what this means? Social network sentiment analysis is used by mostly consumer companies to see how the consumer brand is doing on Twitter or Facebook. So they'll do this hashtag Pepsi, hashtag sucks, or something like that, and understand whether Pepsi really sucks or what the consumers are trying to say about Pepsi, and then try to shape it. And that aspect of social network sentiment analysis comes into play. So these are a variety of segments of applications or services that you need to worry about from a business perspective when you're dealing with the red item. When you're dealing with the competition, you need to worry about these things, meaning competitive intelligence, market analytics, trend analysis, see what's going on, see how they are behaving, see what we are missing out on, see how Airbus is shaping up the next, whatever that plane is. I don't even know the numbering scheme, or even they have numbering or naming, I don't even know that. But they have something, so you want to keep track on what they're doing, and how do you do that? You know it already. but you need some software to help you do that. And that's where IT implications come along. So everything I'm trying to do in the IT space is essentially tying back to what the business essentially is about. Without business, there is no IT. IT is meaningless if there is no business to go along. And so this is the framework for doing a business. And you have IT application suite, after application suite, and more application suite for a variety of roles in the larger game of business is what I'm trying to draw in this sequence of slides. Is essentially in this frame of reference for each of the ovals, I'm trying to list out what do we need from that particular segment. Like, for example, dealing with suppliers. What do you need? Is these things. And something is missing on this slide. And that thing was about Nitin being a supplier. And that element is called human resources management, is left out on this listing because it is also supplier management. It's a tool, HRM, or you use Hyperion or whatever, I don't know what you use, but some internal tool to manage HR, human resources, which is a supplier for your company. And so you need to have a software dedicated to managing your employee base, your vendor base, and all the people that you deal with. This list does not have a reference to that, but just remember. And then you have the complementors, the tea and sugar, or the coffee and sugar relationship. And you need to do certain things with them, such as go-to-market planning. And so you synchronize your activities around going to market with them. And so you need some IT services, some tools, some frame of reference, some method of interaction with your complementors so that you can go to market together and succeed. And then internal. And here I have put employee just to be politically correct. I put that, instead of putting it here, I put that here just to remain politically correct. But I know for sure it is here. Yeah, it's a supplier. just to not make anybody politically incorrect, I put them here. Is employee hiring, retaining, training, and I did not use the word firing, but that also goes in here. I did not mention that.
That's all HR management.
Yes, the HR management, there are application suites available that you may be deployed already, or you have to worry about these aspects of doing business. And that's where there are more, like information security, physical security, SOX proxy, and all that. So the idea being, whenever you deal with IT, it is not dealt with in vacuum. And so who decides what is right is the business, not the CIO. Just being blatant about it. CIO doesn't make business decisions. The business does. And so CIO has to address business needs and understand what the business needs are, and then appropriately identify tools and services that are needed to enable that function in the business, and then make that happen for all these colors or all these ovals, including the internal oval, which is the company itself, where you have compliance and regulations and internal tools and private OpenStack and whatever you have. IT needs to deliver on a multitude of requirements. I don't want to read it, but the idea is you understand what the business is about and identify your entire portfolio of services that you want to deliver for your business to succeed. And that's the beginning point of discussion about what IT should be or should not be doing. If it doesn't fit into this game of running a successful business, then it doesn't belong in the company. Even though it might sound like a cool idea, it doesn't belong. So this is the frame of reference is what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, it's a good picture. Yeah, it applies to.
It applies everywhere, no matter what company. It applies everywhere. It fits in. Even though it is not an IT discussion, I think it still fits in.
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing essentially is to translate each of these colors into a variety of applications that IT already runs. But IT does that for a specific reason, is to make the company successful.
Yeah, so IT, all the roles, like red, yellow, blue,
Yeah, all the 5.
all, like we have IT for customers, IT for complementers, IT for company, IT for competitors. I don't know, the IT for competitors is not our business. Right? No, we need to do
You do.
market, we need to do trend analysis, we need to do what they are working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. IT for suppliers, so everything is in IT spans across all.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yep. Maybe kind of academic in nature, but I think it is relevant to put in perspective, things in perspectives, to give you that, you know, if something doesn't fit in here, it doesn't belong in the company, even though it may be a cool idea. Like some people carry cool ideas, and you know, hats off to them. But if it doesn't fit in the game of business, take it home.
Did you have the appraisal in there? In the HR?
I may not
Just
have.
curious.
I think that, let's see, retaining, training, welfare. I'm just generally, you know,
Promotions.
yeah, I should say firing here. That's the most important thing. But the idea is to bring up a discussion. And the discussion is around the fact that it is about business, not about nerding, not about, you know, geeking or nerding out.
Yeah, so we're not doing IT for the sake of it.
Yes, IT for the sake of IT is bad.
It has to support business.
Exactly. So that is this discussion. Let's identify the next thing that I have on my list to give you a link on. So this link is the next one. There is another long video, and I'm not going to play the video, but I'm just going to start it to see how long it is. 20 minutes, okay, 20 minutes. So it's a 20-minute long video. Hope it is not boring. And the slides, let me quickly zip through so I'll remember what it is. Okay, so it's about understanding requirements of the application. And a good idea to think about would be to maybe
What problem
Yeah.
is solving?
right. Is from pick any application. How do you decide what do you need to make that application live, up and running, and service your customer base, the user base, whoever that base is? What is that thing that is needed to make the app run correctly for all stakeholders for that application? So maybe let me come up with an example. I want to discuss that.
So like App Store.
Yeah. So, you know, you heard people call occasionally called 911, right? You heard that. Hope you never called. I did. And one day when I called, you know, it worked nicely. So the idea is to pick up phone, dial number, and it looks up your location, your geolocation, and the cops come and the emergency services come and they do whatever you need to do. And so that is good. The enhancements to that is what I'm now suggesting as a new application. It's a fictitious example, right? I'm just suggesting a fictitious example to you. And I'm going to ask you this question, which is, how would you go about understanding what the application requirement would be? That's the question. Like the topic is understanding requirements of an application. Now, before I ask you that question, I will tell you what the application is supposed to do. So it's an enhancement to 911. The idea is, most of us have these modern phones, right? We carry them. And we are in some kind of a distress situation, some distress, and we have it, and we just press a special button, and it starts FaceTime. Automatically FaceTimes 911. Just making it up. It's all made up, right? Our idea behind this exercise is to understand, or help me understand how you would think and define what would that need be from this application that I'm going to describe. The idea would be any person in distress in this country will press a special button. It's not easily accessible, not super easily accessible, but it just starts FaceTime and start broadcasting whatever you see. And all of that gets visible to somebody in somewhere in 911 center. They can see what you're seeing the moment you press the panic button. All of that is recorded, archived perpetually, and is available to the person at that location as well as the police officers and the EMT workers in their mobile vehicles. And this is available on the entire country. Now, how would you define or even begin to describe or understand what does that application require? To pull this kind of application off, what would it take is the question I have. Do you understand the application itself, that concept? The concept is, special button, distress, press it, FaceTime. 911 workers can see you, talk to you,
They can see
they can see what's going on, and police can see it, EMT workers, emergency workers, the medical workers can see it, and all of it is recorded perpetually, archived also for forensic and other usage. So that's the application. So that's the scope of the application. It's very broad. Scope is nationwide. What would it take to pull it off is the question I have. And I want to hear your thoughts. How would you begin discussing, thinking, and understanding what does this application, which is what I described, what would it take to implement it? Like it will take money, time, resources, machines in the cloud, some protocol, some method, some change in law, all those things. I want to understand your thinking. How would you go about thinking? In what breadth and depth can you, or would you have to go and examine? And where would you begin? If Obama gives you a mandate, okay, go implement it. What would you do? Where would you begin? How would you size it? How would you roll it out? Is the kind of discussion I want to have from you. And I want to hear it. What do you think?
Right. So whenever a user, if a user has the service, like press a button, that will start up a FaceTime like a conversation with the emergency services operator, the 911 operator. So maybe like the controller, 911 controller will have a dedicated session between the user, with the user, where he can see the video, if there is audio possible, he can, if the caller is in a position to call, if the caller is in a position to talk, then probably audio should be enabled, if not, video should be enabled, if not, so that functionality, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the function.
Right. The function is clear. I want to understand what do you require, what things you need. Like I want to see inventory of things you need to make it happen. Like I want to actually make it happen now. And we have an iPhone. Let's assume everybody in this country has an iPhone 6, and everybody has unlimited data plan. Let's assume that. And now begin. What else you need? You have the client-side device with the bandwidth connectivity, and everybody has iPhone 6, FaceTime, and unlimited data plans nationwide. That's the starting point. And now we want to implement this 911 scenario with FaceTime. What would it take? What other things you need apart from the phones and the network?
Yeah, someone should develop an app dedicated to press the button, it goes to 911. It's a dedicated app. That's the
Yes.
requirement.
Some app. Understand?
I mean, you need to size it also, depending on some data, how many calls
It
come.
would be a good idea to write down actually. Just write your thoughts. I'll get a pen somewhere. Or maybe use the pen I have. You not like the pen I have? I guess not. Go ahead.
Okay.
Write it. It makes sense to write it down so we can discuss this in a much nicer fashion. Make a new note for you. And there is a pen. And here it is. I want to hear your, go as wide and as deep as you can. Given the assumption is we have iPhones, and we have
We have the app. We have the app as well.
app is already there, FaceTime. Use it. There's a special button. What else is needed?
Nothing else in there. You have unlimited bandwidth, you have unlimited,
Not unlimited bandwidth. Unlimited data.
unlimited data is there.
Not bandwidth. Bandwidth is not unlimited.
I mean, quality of service should be made. Quality of service, like other phone calls should be stopped.
Yes. Yes.
Other,
I'm thinking more on the cloud side. What do you need on the cloud side for transmission, archival, retrieval, playback, evo, those kind of things. What
machines would you need? You need to archive it. You need to make it play live. You need to be able to have the police officer go back and see what happened. Like the keyboard. All these things will be needed for that to enable. So I'm trying to understand what kind of an infrastructure would you put on the back end to make such an application actually function. If you call FaceTime today as if without anything else, it just do a P2P call and nothing else. Right? You cannot do you cannot do roll back in time. You cannot do archives. You can do pretty much nothing except do a FaceTime. That's what current technology is. You have to extend that system to make it archived, to retained for forensic purposes, and actually make it available to police and emergency workers so that they can act on your request. So those are the functions that we need to enable. To enable that function, what do we need? Apart from what we have, which is FaceTime. So think not on the client side, but think on the other side, the cloud side. What do you need there? This is what I'm trying to size it. And that's where the context was to understand application requirements. Like what does this entire application require for a nationwide rollout? And how do you begin rolling it out? If actually Obama says, here is money, go do it. What would you do? Is the question. How do you quantify, size it?
One thing is storage.
Yes, storage. Yep. I think it's more of a discussion, but since we don't have a budget from Obama yet,
Right.
Yeah, it's more of a discussion. But it's good to have that discussion to understand for a greenfield application. How do you think about implementing something which is nothing is known right now? Nothing is known.
Yeah.
So we need some kind of protocol to simultaneously distribute in a live fashion and save to be able to go back.
So you have to somehow tap into the data stream. So either tap into it or channel it to the server, which performs.
Right. Simultaneously send it in two places.
Put the bits somewhere, that's storage.
Yeah.
And you can directly report to the
Date, time, location.
Which can
And
be
we
done
should
from-
be
Ability to zoom into a certain area, like maybe
Zooming, I think it's more of a
the
plan.
client side. Yeah.
I'm thinking more on the cloud side, so what would you need to make it happen? Because, this is a cloud discussion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, scalability has to be there. That depending on the number of calls, it should be able to.
Right.
Then,
How many calls? Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. How many calls do you
and
anticipate?
depending on the area, I mean, like something like Philadelphia will have much more number of calls compared to Seattle.
The number of
That's expected user number of
distress
calls.
situations. How many distress do you get
Yeah.
in Sammamish? Very low distress.
Like from a far away.
In Philadelphia, as he's saying, probably high. In New
Right.
Jersey, even more. Who knows? I'm just making
Yeah.
stuff up. But there are some
So the
characteristics.
bandwidth should be able to support that. Or not the bandwidth, the
Server capacity.
Right. So it has to be scalable, and should there be more calls, like some kind of storm is passing through, and it's a blizzard, and you'll get a lot of calls. So should be able to scale up or down based on maybe upcoming weather storm and all. You can be able to support multiple devices. I mean, they may have the end user. If I'm a cop sitting in a police station versus being in a mobile van, I may use or get it differently, may consume that video differently, or has to be able to render to different devices. And then storing the data, that's like the archiving and all that, how many days you need to store and all those kind of things. So yeah, these are like some of the, from the cloud infrastructure point of view, I will have to do that and be able to deploy the, I mean, if I'm looking at rolling it nationwide, so, develop a small app, smaller instances in multiple places which are geographically, because this service has to be like 24/7, 365, right? Cannot go down. So smaller instances deployed all over the place. So what else?
another thing that we should think of is this bandwidth needed for a FaceTime call. Right? That, and if you run a test FaceTime call,
Mm-hmm.
you notice that the data usage meters, if you go here in, let's say, in setting general usage, you may have seen it. In usage, there is this bandwidth used available. Like how much bandwidth did you consume? How much data do you consume? Did you see that somewhere in there?
I have
So
seen
yeah,
it, but
in the
not
iPhone you can
specific.
find out, or in Android you can find out the same thing. How much was the data used before the call? How much data used after the call? You can always do that, right?
Yeah.
So you make a test call with somebody. You make that call for 1 minute. That it uses about 2 megabytes
Wow.
per minute.
First time,
FaceTime. That's the approximate consumption you will find. It may have improved, it may have been reduced over time. But the last time I checked this, I actually tested. It's about 2 megabytes per minute of data flowing through the phone. And now you count that, compare that with the number of calls that you expect to see in King County. So you basically divide the entire nation in,
Yeah.
not by county, but by
region.
East Side Fire and Rescue Area. Every fire and rescue area, any 911 areas are defined not like county, slightly different from county. So it can be different, not strictly according to county. So you have to put a map together, understand how these 911 areas are divided, collect statistics on how many people typically call on a regular day, on a given month, what's the yearly pattern,
Mhm.
and then account for emergencies like storm coming in.
Right.
What would you need in order for that peak
Yeah.
to be able to address successfully?
You're looking for counties probably.
Yes. Probably, I don't exactly know the unit, whether it's county or something else, but East Side Fire and Rescue from Redmond and Sammamish both are covered the same. You don't have to have like for city. Sometimes it spans across cities. Maybe it's county area, maybe it's some other unit. Look at the entire nation, identify these pockets, and they'll probably be contiguous to the whole country. Now, each of these segments, begin with a pilot. So pick one area, say east side. This is our area that we have. And then identify what was the number of calls made last year or the year before that. Get an estimate of the peak and the median. And then calculate that, multiply that to calculate your bandwidth needed for coming into your server, your cloud end. How much bandwidth, how much pipe you need. And based on that, you might want to have your cloud service provider give you a bigger pipe. It's not just about the machine or CPU side, but also about the pipe going into the machine. Maybe you need a higher bandwidth connection to, like, Amazon provides a direct access connection. Maybe you need that type connection. How big the pipe you want to Amazon box is another channel of constriction, a channel limitation you will run into just to send your calls over to the server.
And by the bandwidth provider also.
Yeah, you can take your own bandwidth to Amazon through level 3 or level 3.
Level 3 community.
Level 3 communication. Some other providers, you can take your pipe to Amazon and say, here's my pipe. So you can have a direct connection to them. So depending on how much pipe width you need, is what you need to account for. That will come from your number of daily calls. And the bandwidth needed for each individual call can be about 2 MB per minute. So you take that math and calculate the size of the pipe needed to go to your server.
So find
And
the
then
provider.
Yes,
Who can provide that.
find a bandwidth provider who can provide you the connection to the server. And account for peaks also. We also have the same kind of accounting for server sizes. How many servers do you want to keep on a median level? And then account for some peaks to address some emergency situation. And then keep a method of keeping that live data for that, like last few days of data, keep it live on the local server and push the older data away to S3. Keep it playable if you want. So officers can look at data from 2 days ago, data from 3 days ago from the S3 bucket. Structure your application like that. You want understand where you store your data and place it according to its usage, expected usage. If it gets really old after like a month or two, then push it even further away from S3. Send it to Glacier. You heard of the Glacier thing? Send it to Glacier off, almost like cold storage. Send it off, keep it safe. And so in case of court case or some other subpoena, you can just invoke that back and pull it up as needed. So that becomes a storage way of thinking in terms of what kind of storage sizes you need. S3 is really cheap, so you don't worry too much about it. You just dock stuff. CPU can be expensive when it comes to these big boxes. You have to keep them running, up and running, and you need to be able to have enough number to be able to address your incoming flow and have the officers look at these videos from these servers in some kind of a window, browser window, or some custom application that you want to create. They can do a playback and rewind.
They, for the officers to look at the video.
Yes, officers to playback the videos.
Maybe they don't have that far.
Just to be like people have capabilities, you will provide that to be another. Then you also need some method of reporting as to how many people called, what's going on, alive, active right now, who's calling, where are the areas in distress right now. So the governor would know. Dashboard. Right, dashboard reporting. So the governor would know, okay, what's the hotspot in my state, where do I need to pay attention. Maybe Christie can go and address New Jersey problems. Something like that.
If the freeway is not blocked.
So a classic application design, if you think about a problem, you would have to account for a variety of aspects that go into constructing. So the reason I brought up this example is to help you understand how would you size it from what we have, from the information we have today, based on what we know already.
How many
go about sizing it?
How many calls it can answer?
And then you go about costing it. Like, what will be the per day, per month cost of operating that? What will be the cost of implementing such an application to begin with?
I think if they implement this, per user cost of 911 would be $100 per month.
Probably not.
So cheap.
Because the actual implementation of software will be expensive one time. Yeah, and some ongoing.
Hardware will be cheap.
Yes, ongoing will be cheaper, but some one-time expense will be there. But I think this is implementable because cost of machines is really cheap these days. It's not that
The
expensive.
processing power is not expensive.
CPU is not expensive, bandwidth is not expensive, storage is almost free and unlimited. Virtually, I mean, really unlimited.
So, yeah, right. Only implementation cost.
It's not just an illusion of infinity, it's actually
Almost.
infinity. Almost. At least I tend to believe that. So, what else did we miss? What do you think that maybe we did? Sizing, costing, probably not.
Disaster recovery. That's not any idea.
Yeah, but that should be, yes, backup and what politicians think is that how many votes will I get as a consequence of me implementing this next time in the elections? They might, but they want to actually know these numbers. If I invest my government money on a project like this, what's the likelihood of my party coming back in power next time when I get in the elections? They do these math. It's mostly back on the envelope math for them, but they tend to do that because they want to remain in power. And it is their business, right? It's their ROI.
In India, they do all of that.
Yes,
In India, it's
that's what I
common.
have seen it. It's very common in India, and probably here too. It's here too, except I'm not sure about Obama. He's probably counting when I finish my term. And yes, you bring in other social media analytics, data analytics,
All these aspects are relevant. And I don't think I can come up with each and everything right now, but I'm still thinking as to what may be missing.
If the emergency service really go.
Yeah, yes, that's a relevant thing. Is it actually useful? Because I know from first experience, my first-hand experience, 911 when I called, in 2 minutes, there were the cops and the emergency workers in my home. 2 minutes. It is
So-
amazing.
They can, if I have a mobile phone and I'm on the road somewhere in between, they can trace me down to the nearest cell tower, right, through which I'm connecting, but not my exact location. Or,
That's why we
I don't
have
know if
GPS.
that's, sorry?
That's why we have GPS these days in the phones.
Does it give my exact coordinates?
Yes.
Oh, it does?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can pinpoint and drop a bomb on you. If
Right.
you want.
Oh, okay.
That's pinpoint.
Uh-huh.
It is precise. The GPS is really precise on the iPhones.
Yeah.
Okay.
You like
You can tell which room you are in your home.
Uh-huh.
they can find the signal strength, like even if your GPS is not there, like they can find the signal strength for different cell
Oh,
towers.
okay.
There's why they can do some
There are
basic
three methods.
triangulation and all that.
3 methods of triangulation. One is your GPS coordinate from the satellite. The second is your known Wi-Fi access point, distance from known Wi-Fi access point. And third one is distance from cell tower.
Mhm.
The triple triangulation is very common in almost all hexaphones these days to precisely improve accuracy of your
Yeah.
geolocation.
So I would also need a feature where, if there are, say, 5 cop cars in the neighborhood, which one should I direct that you
Yes.
go
Beautiful.
attend
Beautiful.
this
Beautiful. How do I how do
route?
I have to manage my
Yeah,
fleet?
which one?
How
Yeah.
do I manage my fleet? Makes
Mhm.
sense. Fleet management. And that is tremendously useful. I don't know if they do that automatically, but probably
Well, actually, I was working for a telecom company, and we had a service like same-day repair. So if there are 7, repair trucks in the neighborhood, so we used to balance like, oh, this next incoming call goes to this truck based on how near he is and what is on his workload. And on the fly, you can move jobs between, like, if I'm serving over here and the next call, if 5 miles down to Sama's house and 3 miles down to my house, the next call he attends me, and I can have Michael attend to his call because he's nearby. So that that's-
Walmart also does that. Walmart does this in
Oh yeah,
trucking.
yeah. No, if they're running, some store is running low on inventory, they can actually direct the nearest truck which is running on a highway that goes stop there, drop these packages, and move on.
Oh,
That's,
And Walmart has been doing this for 21 or so many years since they started.
This kind of thing.
Yeah, and it is no act of luck
yeah.
on part of Walmart. Walmart is a big IT shop, really big. It's
Running co-op.
running, I don't know what. And now these days they're on backbone JavaScript.
Okay. Maybe now they are cloudified. Or maybe they're like
Walmart.com is backbone. JavaScript backbone is backbone JS.
Oh,
Big time hiring on backbone JS.
JS, Node.js, Backbone.js, Node.js.
Yeah, backbone JS it runs on Node.js. So backbone is like a client-side JavaScript framework. Node is in the back-end server-side JavaScript engine. So you hear about this aspect of full stack developer. So
UI, middle tier, service, database tier.
so all the tiers full stack. So the front-end stack, if it runs JavaScript, those are called JavaScript frameworks. Node is not one of them. Node is on the back end.
Oh, really? So Node is a server side.
There is server-side JavaScript. All other names you know of are on
Client
the
side,
client
yeah.
side, except Node is in the server side. And Node on the server side runs Chrome, Google Chrome.
Chrome is running on
Chrome create engine is there on the back end, running your JavaScript on the back side.
Chrome is using Node or Node is using Chrome?
Node is built on Chrome create engine.
Node is using
Built
Chrome.
on Chrome.
Node is built on Chrome JS engine.
B.
Mhm.
V8 is the name of the Chrome engine. Like Chakra is the IE engine. Chakra, they're Indian.
The IE JavaScript.
IE JavaScript engine is called Chakra. And Node, Chrome's JavaScript engine is called V8. And that is what Node is based
So
on.
that's all the browsers are having this engine?
Yes.
V8 or
Chakra,
Chakra.
there are engines in the browser, and they have implemented SAM on the back side, and Node runs on top of that. And by the way, Chrome's V8 engine is open source. Chrome is open source.
Why is it in Chakra? Is it done by some company?
Our Indian Microsoft people.
Right, right. Is that Chakra?
Yeah,
There's a
Chakra.
company called Chakra.
No. Chakra is our some Indian.
Oh, that's why they named Chakra? Chakra means cycle.
Chakra means cycle.
Cycle. Yeah.
Cycle. Same thing.
Cycle.
And so developer is
Really? Oh, they just named Chakra. So that's the JavaScript engine in the IE.
Yes.
So is that why I use terrible?
Yes. That's the reason. That's the private. But the idea being Walmart, what they do in terms of managing their inventory is rocket science. Totally rocket science. It's not. Walmart is a magical company. They don't. If you look at people of Walmart, search it on Google, you will find some ugly pictures. But actually, what Walmart is an amazing technology company when it comes to logistics and operations management. Really nice. They have solved the problem at the level of a container, meaning the truck and the container that goes behind the truck, like semi-truck container. They have optimized to that size of that box, the container size. And what Amazon has done is that shrunk that to a shopping cart size, meaning handful of things that a consumer would buy. That next level of optimization of optimizing for the delivery of a container is what Walmart has done. And Amazon has taken that same concept and shrunk the container to an individual customer's needs, like a typical shopping cart, if you will, in Safeway or Costco. You see what I'm saying? The optimization of operations management and logistics handling has been set and optimized around the size of a classic shopping cart in Amazon and the size of a container by Walmart.
Amazon is an e-company.
Amazon, not web services, Amazon.com.
So based on the browsing history, they can do some analytics and figure out that I might be interested in these products. So they can keep those in the inventory.
So Firefox also has a JavaScript engine.
Yes, everybody has a JavaScript engine. Every browser has a JavaScript engine. That's how they render JavaScript. And that's how you see sometimes you may have seen as pages load that some elements shift, align, and adjust themselves. At least in slower machines, you will see that.
Right, and then they take a while to.
And then it will form a beautiful page in a few half a second or so. On a slow machine, you will see rendering and reshaping of elements. HTML tags get rearranged as JavaScript runs on the client side in the browser. You can see that in slow machines. And that's what JavaScript engine in the browser is trying to put various div tags and other tags in that HTML page in appropriate locations. And that's what that JavaScript does. And so this Node.js is taking the Chakra, not Chakra, V8 engine. Let me pull it up to see if I have a reference to that. V8 engine. So the V8 engine, the first query is about, of course, from Detroit. But the second query, second result is the right one. And so this is the JavaScript engine developed by Google for the Google Chrome web browser. And this is open source and it is available here. And that's what Node has used.
The engine like V8, that That would have been developed in some other language, right? Like C or C++ or.
Sorry, I was not listening.
No, the engine itself, like V8 or Chakra or whatever. These things would have been developed in some assembly.
C.
Or C.
C.
Base C. Yeah, C.
Mostly C.
And that runs in the browser runs.
You can see the code in C in chromium.org. Chromium.org is the
Like a GitHub kind of thing for Chrome. I heard of Chromium. Yeah, but-
Chromium is the open source project on which you, so here it says Node uses the V8 engine to execute code, and a large percent of the basic modules are written in JavaScript. And that is what Node is, and it is also an open source project. And these are written in C. So when you have something as fast as a system level, almost like system level code, you need to write in C or Java.
Not Java. Not Java.
Not Java.
Okay.
C.
I don't know.
Yeah.
C
is good. Yeah, C is good. So you'll need to write in C and then build a browser, and then that will run whatever you want. But you will not write in PHP
Or Ruby.
or Python. Yeah, you will write in C. And it says it is written in C. There it is, right there. Node is written in C. And this V8 is written in C++. So that was what we discussed about the example I gave. And this picture was the hardware available as a service. There is a new service which you will laugh about. It's called Metal Service. So they're basically giving boxes, not VMs, but boxes. They call it mass. The language of cloud to physical servers. They're basically giving you physical servers. Mass. So understanding application requirements in that discussion that I have in the video, this is what you will hear. Let's skip this. I'll let you read the video. Keep going. Scaling up and scaling out. I think I have described this, and you probably know this already. You questioned me when I was using the word wrong. How do you eat an elephant? So you basically divide it. Coca-Cola needs to analyze consumer sentiment on Diet Coke brand across popular social networks. What type of machines do you need? Will data even fit on the biggest, most expensive machine you can buy today? So you basically, the need for speed and you understand the concept that I'm trying to highlight here is scaling up versus scaling out. And I think I gave you an example of where would it not be possible to store data coming into your organization on a nightly basis is so big that it won't even fit a box, the biggest box you can buy, because it is so big. That's one problem. And the other problem is the processing from the last night hasn't even finished before you can take on new data, because the machines are small and slow, small as in comparatively small. The data is becoming bigger. So you need to have a different method of scaling out as opposed to scaling up. You cannot scale up infinitely, but you can, in theory, scale out infinitely. Scale up is scaling vertically, scaling out is scaling horizontally, and trade-offs. Scale up and scale out. You know these things. I'm just skipping these things, but you will have the opportunity to listen to that video. And these links are available in this location in the Cloud Architecture tab. So these are the links here on this tab. First few links. Next time we start discussing this case study on Netflix, and this is another bunch of videos I think you should watch, which are so on the same page here. There are these two cases, 8 and 9, that I have links for that you should watch. These Netflix case study, and we'll discuss and try to understand what Netflix has done, how it evolved from
DVD
yes. In fact, that's how the video discussion is actually from if I remember it, that's what it is. So from DVD in the mail to streaming media in the cloud. Like how did they evolve their business? First, the biggest thing that they did initially a long time ago was to remove late fee. You remember late fee was bad. And I don't remember because I never watch movies, but I heard people say late fees are bad.
It was extremely annoying.
I heard that. I never watch any movies. I never had this issue. But apparently people watch movies, it seems. And they run into this issue of late fees that Blockbuster used to hit them hard with. And so Blockbuster store closed, primarily because of these guys. And they provide a very long tail. You know what long tail is or means? This word long tail. It can mean, let me show you a picture of a long tail. Long tail. Long tail is essentially, it's a statistical distribution. Think of it that way. It looks like this in picture. You have seemingly infinite number of choices available. Most of them are irrelevant. Like Indian movies, right? Bollywood movies. Long tail. Like I don't even know what the names are. I don't even care, but they're there. And they're available on Netflix. Do you know? All of them. I did not know. So that's a classic long tail that nobody cares about. I mean, at least some of you do not care about Indian movies, and they are there. So they cater to that long tail. They cannot do this long tail if you are a brick and mortar store. You cannot do that. Humanly impossible. Because otherwise you would need to keep the entire collection of Bollywood on every physical store, in every nook and corner, on every street. Not possible. Very expensive. And pretty much useless because nobody watches them. And so Netflix does provide long tail, all of the movies that you can ever think of or ever dream of, including all those Tamil movies and Telugu, Tollywood. You're Tollywood or what? Hollywood or Hyderabad? What do you call it? Tollywood. Yeah. So Bollywood, Tollywood, Mollywood, Lollywood. I don't know what. So they're all in their cities. They have in
local Hollywood.
In local Hollywood. So they make movies and they are all available in Netflix. That nobody seems to care about, but the fact that it's there gives them an advantage over anybody else.
I think only Bollywood movies are there, not other.
Not Tollywood?
I don't think so.
I never see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they are there.
So yeah, I did not
having
know.
a long tail is good for Netflix, right?
Good for leadership.
Yeah.
Good for leadership in the marketplace. We can claim that yes, I have it.
So
You have an obscure movie from 1931. Yes, I have it. Who cares? But the claim that you have it makes it important for you in the business. So that's what long tail is. And so read these videos next time you come. Thank you. The third month will probably slightly more focus towards business than technology, but it will be useful.
Use cases, mostly use cases. Yeah, use cases and some designs.
But in a big
If
study,
you want to go
you want to go technical, we can go technical. You decide. You can shape it the way you want. If you bring a real example, we'll implement it. Okay. If you do not bring your project that you haven't yet, you should. And you should please give the paper that you haven't signed.
Oh, yeah, finally.
I think if you gave it to me, then I have it.
Plus my decorator.
Thank you. So if you please tell me if you want it business focused or technical focused, we can shape the way you want, but I want you to write up that project description you want to do, and please work on it in the class. So next time we'll have you begin the discussion on your project.
Yeah, yeah.
So prepare that. This is 2 days down the road.
Yeah.
Today is Monday. So not enough time left. Thank you.
Many individual projects or
Then do a group project. Keep it easy on you.
yeah, I think we will.
Keep it easy on you.
You saw it.
Yeah, that's all Monday. Monday. I think I sent you a calendar, right?
Yep. You did. But and then I'm not going to be here on Wednesday.
Yeah. Have you got any?
English, when I put in the system, I put as like 3 separate courses. And I got an auto-generated email, like first course ended somewhere, I think, end of September. So
We need
like
a
40